Ready, Jim? Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, everybody. It is June 28th, and it is a little after 6:30. We're about to start the Board of Select Board meeting. And before we do, I'd just like to read a statement. The Scituate Select Board is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcome and respected. We ask our community members and all who participate to commit to these standards, to support and respect our community. Thank you. With that, I'll call the meeting to order. Can I have acceptance of the agenda?
Second.
Second by Ms. Canfield, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous. Any statements from the board before me? No? Okay. Any walk-ins? Seeing none, we'll move on to the report of the town administrator.
Thank you, good evening, happy Tuesday. We'll start as always with our COVID update. Our average data number for the week was 19, that's down from last week's 28. The total number of cases reported to the Board of Health was 54, which is down 1 from last week at 55. Our positivity rating over the last 14 days was 7.7, which is down from 7.73 from last week. Plymouth County's at 5.13, down from 5.95. Statewide, the positivity rate for the last 7 days was 5.78, down from 5.78, up from 5.16. Statewide, there are 38 individuals in the ICU, which is up from 34 last week, and 9 patients intubated, down from 14 of last week. So the numbers are mixed across the board. We've seen almost being a holding pattern. According to the Globe, there are 2 new variants of the Omicron strain, BA4 and BA5. They are more resistant to antibodies, so they are becoming the dominant strain. The experts do believe cases will continue to decline over the summer, but it will be a slower decline than we have seen or we expect. So it looks like COVID will be with us for the summer. But hopefully those numbers will continue to decline. We'll continue to say, if you haven't been vaccinated, please do so. If you've been vaccinated, please get boosted. A water update. The reservoir was at -2 yesterday. Last week was even. Tack Factory Pond was even, down from last week's +1. The average daily demand was 1.481 million gallons per day, which is essentially the same as the previous week. And manganese is still high enough the treatment plant can cause discolored water when it goes to the plant. Rainfall over the last 7 days, this is before yesterday's rain, was 0. As I announced yesterday, and I told the board, the track back system at the bottom of sedimentation basin 2 has stopped working. The treatment plant is currently running through only 1 basin, which is half capacity, with a max of 1.5 million gallons per day. This is restricting the amount of water we can produce. We had a company in today, we know the control panel is functioning properly, so we are in the process of draining the basin. So the contractor went to see what's going on. Without knowing the extent of the problem and how long it will take to fix, we are implementing a full outdoor water ban starting tomorrow. We will send that announcement out. This ban will stay in effect at least until the plant is back online. Just to make everybody aware, this has nothing to do with our water supply. This is strictly an ability to produce water through the water treatment plant caused by the breakdown. As I also let the board know yesterday, we have seen some disruptions in our chemical supply caused by COVID and worldwide issues. This could impact our well production. Right now, we believe we have solved the issue of our chemical supply, but this could be an ongoing issue as we go forward. So we really need to get the water treatment plant back online as soon as possible in case we have some disruption in our wells. We did put a request for emergency procurement into the state today so that we can do whatever needs to be done to get the water treatment plant back online without having to go through the bid process. So I'll keep the board informed as we go. Ken, think tomorrow they'll be in the basin?
Yeah, if we can get it all pumped down, we're hopefully gonna be in, if we get the supplier back, we'll be inside there and check what's going on. There's some parts issues, and we're just not sure what we're gonna find.
So is the track back system the cleaning mechanism?
Yes. So it's a sedimentation basin, all the organics settle down the bottom of the track backs, vacuums it up, sends it out to the plant, and eventually that goes down to the water treatment plant, treatment plant. So on a related note to the sewer treatment plant, after seeing on the news the other night about the wet white island in the Thames River that's the size of 2 tennis courts, we want to remind people that flushable wipes are not flushable in our sewer system. Please keep them out of our sewer system. They clog up the pipes, they clog up the pumps, and they make a mess. So we just want to remind everybody, we have a lot of people that are in town for the summer, they haven't been around for a while. Please do not put flushable wipes down the toilet into the sewer system. They cause a real mess. This morning, I spent the morning with DPW, police, fire, and planning, meeting with representatives from Mass DOT, reviewing safety and issues on the Route 3A corridor from Henry Turner Bailey to First Parish. Henry Turner Bailey will be included in the Cohasset 3A project, which is scheduled, I believe, for FY25 TIP. That includes signalization of the Henry Turner Bailey intersection. We looked at sight lines, we looked at growth, we looked at geometry and the configuration of all the intersections, traffic movements, you name it. We talked about lights, signage. We also made a push, if we do anything on Route 3A, that the state put a sidewalk from Old Forge Road down to First Parish, which has a neighbor that's kind of cut off by itself up there. So it was a long meeting, got out about 1:30. DOT will be providing a report to us that we review, and that report will be made public. We'll look at doing the short-term fixes, which will be signage, which will be line painting. But I do want to warn people that major changes, if they go through the TIP process, which is the state's funding mechanism for these type of things, will take quite a while. For man lot, we mentioned traffic lights, the state mentioned roundabouts, but really it's the science that's going to decide what's going to happen. But it is a very long process to go through the state's funding. But we'll see what the report says, and then we'll have to go down the short-term stuff, and then maybe they said they could do some of the medium stuff, which is a lot of those intersections, if you recall, have very wide corners, so cars can take it very quickly. If you can square off those corners, and the cars have to slow down on 3A to take that turn, which slows down the traffic, which then will provide gaps in the traffic for man lot and Booth Hill. So we'll get as much done as we can, and then we're going to start engaging the state on the TIP process. So I'm going to call the Pat on to get us started on that.
How long will it take to get the report back, Jim?
Shouldn't take that long. I'll say a couple weeks because we have the holiday coming up. But I would think in July we will get that back. We'll push them on that.
Is there any way that you can get, Booth Hill seems to be the more dangerous intersection of the 3 there? Is there any way to get them to look at that?
Yeah, the thing with Booth Hill, because they're going to put a light at Henry Turner Bailey, it's too close to Henry Turner Bailey to put another light. They said they could put multiple roundabouts if we wanted, but if you could do something in Man Lot and do something in Henry Turner Bailey, that will provide gaps in the traffic for Booth Hill. But with the signalization going in Henry Turner Bailey, there's no way to put a light at Booth Hill. And the numbers of Booth Hill are just not big enough to put a light. The state was adamant about that. We can't stop 400 cars going on 3A for two cars going on Booth Hill. But there are some changes we can make. We've already done some of the state came out and cleared it. So we'll stay on that, we'll see what the report says, and then we'll try to get on that same process. But we found out today that the reconstruction on 3A coming down to Henry Turner Bailey, there'll be a sidewalk coming off Henry Turner Bailey going into Cohasset, and then there'll be bike lanes on 3A that will get to the end of the construction project and then just stop. It's dumped upon the regular 3A in Scituate. That made no sense to us, but that's what the design says. You'll have a bike lane, you'll have a 2-foot striping setback between the regular travel lane and the bike lane, and then you get past the end of the project and the bike lane will go away and you'll just be on 3A right away. It's really around the funding and all that stuff. So, good news, police department graduated 3 brand new police officers on Friday. Officer Michael Orr, Officer Alyssa Rem, and Officer Marissa Stewart graduated as members of the 15th ROC Randolph Regional Police Academy after a 23-week class. All 3 excelled in their class and earned notable class awards. Officer Orr was awarded the Firearms Achievement Award for marksmanship as well as the EVOC Award for Skill Driving. Officer Stewart earned the Physical Training Award for elite physical fitness throughout the academy. And Officer Alyssa Rem was awarded the Academic Achievement Award for earning the highest GPA in the class. We're very proud of these officers. We're very happy to have them on the department. They'll be starting very shortly. They'll do several weeks of service training with current Scituate officers, and then they'll be on the street. So we look forward to seeing them out on the streets of Scituate. 4th of July is this weekend. We have our signboards up. We are putting out the notifications from police, fire, DPW. A reminder, fireworks are illegal. Consumption of alcohol in public is illegal, and bonfires are illegal. If you are having parties or gatherings at your house, please make sure that you leave enough room for public safety vehicles to get up and down the street in case they need to. Be smart, be safe, and have a good 4th of July. We will be out of force making sure that people are safe over the weekend. Reminder, Cohasset started utility work on 3A between Stop and Shop and Pond Street. This will go August 1st. Southbound lanes will be shut between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. and northbound traffic will be detoured onto the southbound lane. And the southbound traffic will be detoured onto King Street and around back on 3A. If you don't wake up there in the morning, please be aware of delays. 2 more things to touch base. We've received numerous calls in the office about Minot light not flashing. Although Minot light is a private light, the light itself is actually the responsibility of the Coast Guard. They have been out to the lighthouse, however, their owner is doing work inside, so they have not been able to access the light itself. They're hoping to do that fairly shortly and then get the light turned back on. But the Coast Guard is aware of it. They've made at least one attempt, but they stripped it out to the light. So that work will be wrapping up. We should be out there as quickly as possible so we get Minot light turned back on. I know, again, we've received numerous calls and that, so we just want to let people know that we're aware of it, the Coast Guard is aware of it, and we'll get it fixed as quickly as possible. And then finally, as I said yesterday, school's out. So we ask you when you're driving around Scituate, particularly in our neighborhoods, be more aware of your surroundings, of children biking, children running, children playing. They'll be out there all summer, so just take a little more care when you're driving. And school is out, and we have a lot of kids in the neighborhoods running around and doing stuff that kids do. So that's what I have for tonight. What are any questions?
Thanks, Jim. Any questions for Jim?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
The Minot parking lot, there's a big trailer and some material that's out there. Is that the town's, is it someone else's?
Thank
Is it a flatbed trailer?
Yes.
I'll look into it and find out whose it is.
We'll get out of this. We'll get out of the guys.
Or,
No.
yeah,
Jim, could you, have someone put on the town website on the front page what the water restrictions mean, where, what the next level is that we're at?
Yeah, we will send out a notice tomorrow, we'll put it on the website.
But if it goes, I was looking for the restrictions last week and I had to like work my way all the way to the website. So I'm just asking if there could be some sort of banner put up.
It'll be right on the left-hand side on the top.
All right,
So that is other things you want, to push it down, but as of tomorrow, it'll be at the top of that banner.
perfect. Thank you.
great. Okay, just a couple other quick things of events that are upcoming. Today's the 28th, so tomorrow we have our first library reading kickoff. So at the library from 5 to 7 p.m. There'll be events going on. And then this weekend, we've got, there's a fundraiser for flag football. It came before us a couple weeks ago. That is on the 2nd, from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So sign up for that. And then on the 3rd, there's a children's bike ride at Lyman. Again, that looks like a fundraiser. And then on the 6th, we start our Scituate Library Summer Concert Series. So that starts on the 6th from 5 to 8. So lots going on in town. All right, moving right along, we'll have our first interview for boards and committees, and the Economic Development Committee is Paul McDory. Paul, how are you?
Hello, members of the select board, and thank you for.
Right up and sit there and.
You want me to sit down?
Right.
Yeah, okay, yeah, Mike, sure.
So everyone can hear.
Members of the board, thank you for considering me for the Economic Development Committee. Pretty excited to hopefully get on with the committee. I would hope that I can help the town keep all the new development that will respect the history, the values, and traditions while protecting our small town charm. And also, of course, I do not want to see development, hopefully, that makes us look more like a city. I do have a little reservations about what's happening around, that's way before me, and it's all done, and we'll wait to see how it comes out, is what's happening around Greenbush train station. Might be good, might be bad, who knows, but it's interesting to see that development. I also believe that North Scituate Square is a diamond in the rough. I've done this kind of work before in Milton, Mass, and I just think it could be much better than it is, and hopefully we'll work on it. Kyle asked me to come on board because I was talking about a few different things. Of course, the Jamie site particularly needs to get cleaned up. Something's got to happen there. Development, or make it into a park, whatever. Hoping to see that happen. So that would be great. On my resume, I think you have a copy. I was the president and founder of the Milton Chamber of Commerce for about 25 years. Ran all kinds of committees. Great committee members that helped us get things done, and we grew that to about 90 businesses, which is a lot of businesses for Milton. Milton doesn't have much of a business space. It's mostly a veteran neighborhood. It's only a square, another small square, and we ran all kinds of committees. We got a lot done. I was on a number of town committees, so I'm pretty used to the committee fields and the committee ins and outs. And I was on the sign committee, the Milton Business Revitalization Committee, I chaired that one. The Milton Development Committee, I chaired that one also. And we managed to get a lot of things done, especially East Milton Square. And the crown jewel was a 20-year project we worked on. And that was, most of you were aware that as you go to Boston, you did East Milton, you have this big deck tunnel you go under. And that thing was a mess, it was falling apart, it still is. But we had to work with the federal government, the state government, and the local officials. So there's a lot going on there. And we wanted to get parking on the deck for the business. We wanted 1/3 of the deck to be parking and 1/3 view of the park. But we weren't able to get the parking because of a federal restriction in the end. It's being really looked at this point, and it's just getting done. And after working on this thing, believe me, for 20 years, I said, this is gonna get done when I retire, after I retire, and I just retired. So interesting enough, it's almost done. It's been in construction for almost 3 years. So that was quite a project. I was lucky enough, again, with the help of great committee members, to go to Stephen Lynch's office with Congressman Lynch and get $1 million. We did the whole check on the thing, that big check up on the deck. And then the state run the program, they came in with $1 million, and then there was another 200,000 that came in from another source. So, and we were able to get that 2.2 million to get it kicked off. And so we were very proud about that. Myself and the committees were just really happy about that. Again, this couldn't have happened without the great committees like that. They just worked hard. As a small businessman, my background is 40 years in the health club business. I own 3 health clubs called Fitness Unlimited. One in Milton, Mass, one in Brookline, Mass, and one in Raymond, Mass. And I also served on the HRSA board, which was the largest association of health clubs in the world, over 50,000 health clubs. I just retired from that. But as a small businessman, I like to think I know how to get things done. We had to get things done. We built these clubs, we remodeled them, we relaunched them. They were quite large, most of them were about 20,000 square feet. So I have experience in business, and I hope that helps me on the committee if you accept it. Really, that's really as much as I really need to tell you tonight, I hope. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Great. Well, thank you for the brief summary of your background.
Thank you.
To address it. And I will open up the committee to see if anyone has any questions. Yeah.
Well, not a question so much as an observation. You seem to have an entrepreneurial spirit. At the same time, I was just up in East Milton Square and it's still not done.
No, it's not.
So-
It was supposed to be done last year, it's delayed
So
again.
the fact that you've been able to stick with it, because that's the nature of town government, local governments that, we're very beholden to different entities to help us get things done, and they don't often happen overnight. that, they just,
Yeah, basically things are 3 to 5 years minimum,
minimum.
you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, you have
I think James
realistic
told me,
expectations.
I think James gave me good news that maybe there would be a source system put into North Scituate. I think that'll help right that square up will be more quality development, we hope.
It's our goal.
Fingers crossed.
All fingers crossed.
We're, this board is more than aware of that, and, you know, the other just observation I will make is that everyone wants to tell everyone else what to do with their property.
Yeah.
They don't want anyone to tell them what to do with their property. And so sometimes people need to sell property in order to come out of retirement or to send kids to college, and they wind up in the hands of a developer or a builder, depends on your point of view as to whether they're builders or developers. And then, you know, we can have an influence on some of these things, but we can't stop
Yes,
progress.
yes.
And we do the best we can, I think, but I'm impressed with your background, and I hope you make
Okay,
a
thank you for
positive
your,
contribution.
thank you for your kind thoughts.
Thank you for coming in. I'm Karen Canfield, as the and I just came from a meeting with our Director of Planning and Development, Kyle Wood, that you referenced, and Sue Pisa, who's our Chair of Economic Development. They both spoke very highly of you and are anxious to use your talents with the board. This particular committee is very active and very productive, which is great. So keeping that momentum going, I'm sure they will put hands to work. So welcome to Scituate, and thank you so much for wanting to contribute to our community as well.
Looking forward to it, should be fun.
I have a his excellent resume, and also just listening to some of your commentary, I mean, this is a nice springboard for you to eventually run for a planning board, which is an elected position, which has.
I was hoping for the President of the United States.
Your comments on some of the, you know, the Driftway issues.
Sure.
You value there as well, so it's been a great way for you to immerse yourself in the situation, so thank you for studying.
Very good, I just moved here, I've always loved the town, I was in Norwell, I don't know why I said that, but Norwell for 16 years, and we came down here because we just love the beach and stuff. And it's a great town, I just love it.
Great, well, thank you for coming here.
Thank
You
you.
clearly have a lot of energy, and thanks for getting involved, and that's the first step, right? You learn a lot, you see what you can do, what you can't do, and we take baby steps forward every day, this is our goal, so. Thank you. Lorraine, how many openings do we have on this committee?
One.
Just one? Okay, great. And we will not vote now, but we'll vote at the end of the meeting, you don't have to hang around, but Lorraine will get in touch with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna hang around a few minutes, but thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Okay. Now, our next item is a discussion and vote for an outdoor entertainment permit. And we have a wedding for Tyler and Denise. Come on up. Just give us your name and address to start.
So the wedding's at 55 Tiller Road and my name's Tyler Leach.
Is that your house?
No, it's a family friend's house.
Okay. So tell us what they're planning to do and other than get married, it looks like.
So wedding, the whole wedding's there, ceremony, reception, tents are getting brought in, all of that type of stuff. We're asking for a entertainment permit for the wedding DJ. 130 people.
30?
100.
130.
Yeah.
Sorry, the air conditioning's going so slow. And you want the entertainment license from 2 to 11 p.m.?
Yeah.
Okay. And is it all gonna be a DJ for the whole time period?
Yeah.
Great. Have you notified the abutters?
Yeah. We sent letters out, I want to say it was a month and a half ago, 2 months ago.
Okay. And before, did you get any letters back or anything?
No.
Any questions for Tyler?
No, I bet you knew we needed a marriage license, but not an entertainment license, so here you are.
Just a point of clarification, the backup says to 11 p.m., but the motion we have, which is very nice, great for us, is 10:30. What time will the DJ
So
play
it's,
till?
he'll be there until 11.
So you do need it till 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is that in the back of that? I don't know what the 55 total is.
It's like a house that's set in the back.
Okay.
The whole wedding will be in like the backfield, so I believe it's like a 2-acre piece of land. And it's where we are doing the wedding, it's not here.
Right, can I have a motion?
Move to grant an outdoor entertainment permit to Tyler Greenwich and Denise Kirby for a wedding DJ on September 17th, 2022, from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. at 55 Tilden Park.
Second?
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion? Seeing none, any from the audience? All in favor? Aye, it's unanimous. Tyler, congratulations, have a great time.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to keep myself.
The next topic of discussion is Scituate Harbor Yacht Club Summer Events, Maureen Ray. Ms. Canfield has recused herself.
Yes.
Maureen, how are
Good
you?
evening, how are everybody?
Haven't seen you in 12 months.
Exactly. So I'm here tonight on behalf of the Scituate Harbor Yacht Club to request an entertainment permit on behalf of the club for several events coming up over the next couple of months. And I do have a whole list of events here. I don't know if we're going to go through.
We have them, so.
Okay.
Just for background reference, you do these, are these, is there any new ones?
Everything on here is exactly the same as last year. Marina party was on the docks, cocktail parties on the lawn. We do a small party next weekend, it's a beach party, it's at the end of our parking lot, with a, no DJ, it is a Spotify list and an amplifier, but it's still on our property. It's pretty much all the same stuff as last year. And then a couple of weddings in the fall, but the band or the DJ is inside the clubhouse and everybody sits out in the tent.
So it looks like about 12 to 15 events, a lot of them around Heritage Days and summer events.
Exactly.
A lot of them are kids'
Luminaria,
events.
4th of July, yeah.
Any questions for me?
No, just for the public, most of them seem to end at 11 p.m. at the latest, so it's all standard.
So you've been doing these events for decades, we really have not had any complaints at all, as long as I've been doing
As
this.
long as I've
Yeah.
been doing this too.
So,
I know.
great, so best of luck. Can I have a motion?
Move to grant outdoor entertainment permit to the Scituate Harbor Yacht Club on the following dates. Attached list of 2022 Scituate Harbor Yacht Club outdoor entertainment events, dates and times.
Second by Ms. Curran, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous 4-0. Thanks, Maureen.
Thank you
Have a
very
great
much,
summer.
everyone. Have a good summer.
All right. We have a, next topic is a discussion vote on a one-day beer and wine permit for a new caterer. It's the Town's Shed Kitchen and Drinks, an event for the 23rd, July 23rd, from 2 to 6. Foyer of the charity, Dennis Adams, managing partner.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming in.
My name is Devin Adams. I'm from Braintree. Our business is located in Queensy. And of course, the foyer is on Holland Roof. The family, the Cotters, which are on Booth Hill, are on the board of foyer. And this is in relation to a celebration of life from 2 to 6 here on. Right now, numbers are about 180 to 220. The intent on the property, no DJs. There would be possibly some speeches on a PA.
Great. Any questions from the board?
All of the backup is provided and your tip certified and all the things we worry about for serving.
Great, it goes from 2 to 6.
The only question I would have for you, I suppose, is we may end up using a food truck on the property for backup. So is that separate, just going to the health department, just for a 1 day as well?
Yes.
Does that need to be a board as well, or is that just?
Lorraine, does that have to come to us again, or?
No, that's just through the board.
Just board, okay.
All right.
We just want to make sure nobody gets food poisoning. That's all.
Yes.
Wonderful, can I have a motion?
Move that the select board approve a one-day wine and malt license to the town of Simpson Kitchens and Drinks for a celebration of life event for charity 74 Holland Street on July 23rd, 2022, from 2 to 6 p.m. Second.
Second by Ms. Conley, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? None, so it's 5-0. Hey, can you pronounce the name of both Karen and I?
Yeah, but
Which
So it's, yeah, everybody does. It's English, so it's Townsend. Think of like Pete Townsend from the Who. It's
That's what we wanted.
yeah, it's an old
It just
Revolutionary War.
Didn't read that way.
Yeah, no, it never does, but.
Great. Thank you very much, enjoy it.
Appreciate
Have a great event. Okay,
Thank you, appreciate it.
do we want to set up a phone call for?
Sure.
Our next discussion vote is the Songwriters Festival Kickoff Party. And this is Tara Tondorf, excuse me, the owner of the River Shed, and she couldn't be here, but we're gonna set up a conference call for her.
hybrid anymore, or,
Hybrid meetings?
yeah, I mean, is the Zoom in option?
It's a good
I
question.
think we are allowed to until next April.
I think we can.
Yes,
You just need-
board said it in front of you, person.
No,
That's
but
okay.
we can allow.
You can't have someone do it if you want.
No one will have to manage the Zoom.
You can't just say one person can.
Hi, Carol Grandin.
Yeah,
That's what they do.
I think that's what you're asking.
You're up on the agenda, so I'll put you on speaker, okay?
Research.
Okay, hold on.
I was just thinking she could help out.
Hi, Kara, can you hear me?
Kara?
I can hear you.
Oh, great, now we can hear you. Thanks for calling in. I just gave a quick summary that this is a discussion vote for a Songwriters Festival Kickoff Party. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. I did it in 2019 without any issues. Basically, what I do is I have a weekend where I fly in these hit songwriters from Nashville. So they're the folks responsible for writing a lot of the songs that you hear on the radio. And we do an event on Friday night, and then we do an event at the Rivershed on Saturday. And the Friday night event, we do like food and beer and wine and stuff like that. And basically the musicians perform outside. It's all acoustic. As a matter of fact, in 2019, all the neighbors were sitting out on their decks and able to have a free show. But it went very well without issues. And now that COVID has subsided, we're just looking to do it again, same house.
Great, so where do you do it outside, behind the restaurant, or do you set up something in the parking lot?
We do it in the patio at the restaurant. I'm only going for the Friday night event because I need the one day.
This is for the Friday night event at 52 Oceanside.
Okay, my fault, great.
Are they both at Oceanside? Yes, this is the kickoff party.
It's just one at Oceanside.
So the other address is just for the Rivershed? Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah,
so,
the other event is just the Rivers. I already have my permits in place. I already have an entertainment license for that, so I don't need any
right,
special permission. This is just for the Friday night event.
right, and that's going to be, the one at the Rivershed is going to be in the back, not, or is there a new stage in the parking lot?
It's going to be on the patio, yeah.
Any questions for Kara? No, it was a great success last time, and we wish you the best of luck for this one as well.
Thank you very much.
Can I just have a point of clarification?
Yeah.
So that both events are taking place at Oceanside Drive, both nights?
There's only one event at Oceanside.
Okay,
It is on September 23rd,
yeah,
and Kara is requesting an outdoor entertainment permit.
Yeah.
And a one-day wine and malt, because she doesn't have a license at that
Oh.
address.
so they're
Anything
both-
she does at the Rivershed, she doesn't need any permission for, because she already is licensed.
covered, right?
That's why that really is not on there.
I'm sorry, I had to clarify, because it looks like both events.
It's
one event, it's one event, two permits.
And then, at Rivershed, one event at So there are two,
of Rivershed.
but there are two permits needed for the event at.
The house.
Correct, yeah.
So
Two
one
permits
is-
needed.
One is the ban at the house, the other is for the Rivershed to be able to serve alcohol at the house, a 1-day permit for Rivershed at the house.
Good explanation. And I assume it's just a residence, I don't.
Yeah, she's renting the
Yeah, it's private residence.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
Move to grant an outdoor entertainment permit to Kara Tondorf of Rivershed, 17 New Driftway for an event at 52 Oceanside Drive on September 23rd, 2022, from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m.
Second by Ms. Canfield. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye, it's unanimous.
Further move to grant a 1-day wine and malt beverage license to Kara Tondorf of Rivershed, 17 New Driftway for an event at 52 Oceanside Drive on September 23rd, 2022, from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m.
Second.
Second by Ms. Curran. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's unanimous. Kara, 5-0, pass both of them, go enjoy your kids.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
Karen.
All right, have a good night.
Okay. The next topic that we have today is discussion vote for Heritage Day special event application. See you Elaine in the back, how are you?
Should I come up there?
Yeah, come on back, come on up. That way people can hear you. So tell us about this Heritage Day.
It's the same as the past few years. It's all out in Cole Park right now. Front Street will not be closed.
Okay.
The only thing on Front Street is the shuttle bus stop.
Oh, great.
Yeah, the shuttle bus can't do Cole Park. It stopped there last year. It stops kind of in front of Rudolph Down. That was where the bus stop was.
Okay.
That's it on Front Street. Everything else is out in the beer garden, the stage, the vendors, there's certain events. The luminary and the boat parade are Friday night. And then Saturday, everything's in Cole Park with the exception of the glory races, which are on Jericho Beach, early in the morning, 9. Yeah, the final tide return. We have time for that. It wasn't when I first did it. I think it's about 9 in the morning now.
Okay. So are you having considerably less vendors?
Same as last year, less than,
Oh, was there nothing on Front Street last year?
no, same as last year, so less than in past years.
Yeah.
With the exception of last year. Last year we did it all in Cole Park. And there are less vendors. Not a lot less, there's probably about 50 vendors.
Yeah, I know they kind of go down to the parking, so, great.
And the amusement rides, that's on the other side, the other end of the parking, that's there every year.
Yeah.
So there's nothing different.
And the music venue will be same hours, Saturday, Sunday, going into the
I
early.
believe it's, yeah, the vendors, let me see.
We have 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday, and 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Sunday.
Any questions for Elaine? More?
No question. Eileen, August 7th is Purple Heart Day, and our town was designated as a Purple Heart community years ago. And when they did the boat parade, there was, decorated in purple.
Last year they did.
Are you coordinating that as well?
You know what,
Because it's the same weekend.
I don't know, but I see a reason why we couldn't.
Yeah.
We did it last
It's
year.
a nice
I
touch.
don't know if they thought about it.
Okay.
I'll write it down, I'll tell them it is.
Yeah.
And I believe it's Tim Stewart.
It
was
is.
the contact, okay.
Yes. I just figured having a boat parade it might be nice to combine it, because it's the same weekend.
Good idea, yeah.
Cool.
I would just mention, just to bring up, I know parking's always an issue, just in case you're aware that there are these new Airbnb for parking, people can rent out their driveway or other places, just something to maybe look at to help alleviate possibly some parking if someone goes away. Happy to get you some info, but just to kind of, someone's, oh, I'm not gonna be there, you can park there for $10, go for it.
Right now, we have the lockdown in Greenwich, the
Yeah.
MTA, and the parking on the east side of 10th Street. And then there is still some parking in Cole Parkway, not much.
Yeah. It was great about, I looked out, well, last year was really, it was great, so.
So we would just request that people get the shuttle if they can, because as Andrew said, the parking is a little bit something.
Much easier.
Questions for this guy? No? Great, well, it starts Thursday night with the kickoff, and then it goes Friday night with the boat parade, into Saturday with all the kids' events and music in the evening, and on to Sundays.
And all the historic sites open?
Yes, yeah, great. The only thing that's not this year, I guess the Knights of Columbus is not having the papers.
Oh.
Okay, we checked with them. When I turned in the permit, they didn't know, so I said unconfirmed. But everything else is there, the Rotary thing, a breakfast, St. Louis. Yeah, St. Louis yard sale, historic sites are all open, the Bell Tower concert, pie social, the pig roast is not.
The pig is happy.
Huh?
The pig is happy.
Yeah. So if you could get, when you get your literature printed out, if you can get us a copy, we'd like to post it on the town website, so they can see all the events.
We have some of the flyers already.
Yeah.
We have like a catalog of downtown. We have about 4 or 5 flyers, we don't have the music finalized. We don't have the schedule finalized.
Great. Do we get GATRA to shuttle to the historical sites? I thought we did that.
We did in the past, we tried last year and we couldn't get it to work. But again, I have the contact information. We did try to do it last year. That was a good idea. I think we did it 2 or 3 years ago.
But one, you guys know what's best, so.
Yeah.
But if you need help with that,
that's just makes it much, that's much better.
Yeah. Great. And if they could drop them back off in. Yeah, in the
So that's
park.
what we need.
Just a thought, would you consider having people park at the high school / back here, there's nobody there during
I think that I think we have adequate parking at the T-Hill.
Well, it's getting pretty tight down there. Yeah. At the T?
All right.
Yeah, I'll just
We
suggest
haven't had a problem, we'll have to look at that. I know
Just a thought.
last year, and before, we've had, because last year we didn't have across the street for, we couldn't use that.
Right.
So we were worried about that,
Right.
but it worked out.
No tickets.
Well, they're not tagging on the lot that day. It's free parking.
Yeah.
I've been in touch with the MBTA. They're not charging that thing. Okay, letting them pick park there free. Now that makes a difference.
Yes, it does.
There's no other questions? Can I have a motion?
Move to approve a special event permit to the Chamber of Commerce for Heritage Days as follows. Friday, August 5th, 2022, dusk from Luminaria and Oak Parade Harbor. Saturday, August 6th, 2022, 8 a.m. boat races, Museum Beach, Jericho Road. Saturday, that's right, huh?
Yeah, it's Saturday the 6th or the 7th.
Saturday, August 6th, 2022, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Vendors Food Court, Kitty Carnival, Beer Garden, and Music on Whole Parkway. And then Sunday, August 7th, 2022, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Vendors Food Court, Kitty Carnival, Beer Garden, and Music on Cole Parkway.
I'm sorry about these dates. Friday, August 5th,
It's okay.
August 6th is Saturday,
And the 7th,
7th.
and August 7th is Sunday.
so just the last one is the 7th. Oh, and the one before the 6th.
The one
But-
before is the 6th.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
the
think Karen got it right to the one.
The 6th is Friday, yes.
6th to 7th.
6th, 7th.
Fifth is Friday.
Yeah, 6th is Saturday,
So
August 5th
amended
is
to
Friday.
say August sixth, seventh, and eighth, as stated.
There's no Monday. It's the 6th, it's the 5th, 6th, and 7th.
No, it's just 6 and 7.
Yeah, I think we got it right.
Okay.
Good job, Karen. And then the setup times are here as well, and they're, the setup times will start at 5 in the morning, but this is only, like Elaine said, nothing's on Front Street anymore, so it really shouldn't bother anybody. And the breakdown time is at 8 p.m. On Sunday night. Great. Can I have a second? Okay, Mr. Goodrich, further discussion? Seeing any, seeing none, all in favor? Aye, it is unanimous, 5-0. Elaine, thank you for coming in, and thank the chamber for putting this together. It's a lot of work, and the town really does appreciate it.
All right, that's good.
And hopefully the weather will be good.
Okay.
We still have another motion for the Heritage Days, for the all alcohol permit for the beer garden. And we have Mike Dyer here representing Untitled Chapter.
And Mike,
Leaving board, Mike Dyer, co-owner of Untitled Green.
so what are you gonna do, Mike?
We're obviously, running the beer garden again. This is, done this now for several years in a row. The format is essentially the same as the last few years, no difference in shape, size, how it's set up. All of our staff is tip certified. We work really closely with town PD to make sure we have egress points identified, staff stationed at points of entry, checking IDs and making sure, most importantly, that no one's leaving the beer garden with alcoholic beverages. One slight modification of this year is we put forward an all alcohol permit. In the past, we was a malt and wine beverage. We put forward a request for all alcohol this year, mainly for what are called RTDs, which are ready to drink cocktails. And it was like High Noon, which are basically low ABV, kind of seltzer-like products, but they're made using distilled spirits, vodka. So from a technicality standpoint, we have to ask for an alcohol permit versus just a wine and malt beverage. We have no intent of doing mixed cocktails or having bottles or any of that stuff. This is all being pre-cupped and cans.
It'll be pre-canned, it's not anything that you made, it's
Oh,
not.
yeah, legally we cannot drink this.
What the kids drink now.
The over 21-year-old kids drink the, fine beverages at the driveway, yes.
The young ones, yes, the young ones.
Yes, I think we've all seen it. Great, and same square footage? And
Yes.
Behind the stage area?
Correct.
Front of it,
There's a bandstand that's kind of, if you think about Cole Parkway, like up here where Dunkin' Donuts is, basically the second half, the latter half of that is a fully fenced and contained space. No change in size for us.
And you're running that with Greenbush General Store?
This is correct, yes.
Any questions?
No, it's always been well run in the past, and it's very nice.
No, great.
It's great.
If none, can I have a motion?
Move that the select board approve a one-day all alcohol license for the 2022 Heritage Days event to Untold Brewing LLC and Lamaya, pronounce that right, Liquors Incorporated, doing business as the English General Store for a beer garden during Heritage Days on Bull Parkway, Saturday, August 6th, from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And on Sunday, August 7th, from 11 a.m. to 7.
Second?
Second by Ms. Canfield, no issues with the hours, great. Further discussion, anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye, it is unanimous. Great.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Thank you.
We'll see us there. That's done. The next topic of discussion is discussion of growth for a 5-year lease for to Axon Enterprises, which is electronic control devices. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
I know we've talked about this when we got it on the capital plan, and now it's coming to purchasing time.
Correct, so we've now
wrapped up our 5-year program that we've been on since 2017. So this is basically just the start of a new 5-year program. So Axon, with the kind of product that you probably know as Taser, does a 5-year leasing cycle for us. So we're able to do this out of our operating budget. It allows us to essentially have refills on training. This is now the new product, which is new advanced features and just kind of some improvements. And one of them is kind of some additional training that comes along with it, and really in virtual reality and kind of some like life simulation things. So that's going to be helpful for us to just policy increase training. So this is kind of a continuation of where we are going into the next 5 years.
Great. And when I looked at the number, I didn't realize initially that that is the cost of the full 5 years.
That's the full
So-
5 years.
So it's about $40,000 a year.
Correct, yeah. Year one is about $33,000, and then each of the subsequent years are off from there.
Any questions for the chief?
No, it's good to lock in all those prices, though, especially with this one.
No questions? Great, and this is under, well, this is in your budget, so
This is our budget.
All right, can I have a motion?
Move to enter into a 5-year lease with Axon Enterprises Incorporated for electronic control devices in an aggregate amount of $213,997.38.
Second. Second by Mr. Goodrich. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And you didn't have any issues with heritage days or anything like that? I know you work with the.
Yeah, we do. So starting with Wildfire Officer Village, kind of our special event coordinators, they've been working closely and we continue. They're definitely, each year we kind of have our after action. We say, all right, we're going to make some tweaks, each year. So they're working to do that. And I know there are a couple of things with kind of beer garden that they want to look at and make some adjustments. So they'll be doing that for right now, just full steam ahead.
Let us know if you need our help, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you very much.
Yes. And the next topic has been postponed till next week. So next topic of discussion next is Ppw Contracts, Kevin Cafferty. I think Jim was going to get him to go over contracts. Hey, Kevin.
Good evening.
Give us a second to get to this item. It's on page 44 in our stuff. Great.
So we had 2 contracts. The first one was for a forklift for the highway line. Forklift is used to plow around, put loaders in trucks, unload stuff, unload trees, whatever comes in. The loader's old, the forklift is older, and it was voted to replace the capital plan. And we found one and we're going to purchase it.
Under budget?
No, $7,000 over budget. We're making it up with our equipment account for our regular budgets. Prices escalated significantly.
Questions for Kevin on this?
10% more, most cars are 15, 20, 30% more, so let's take it.
One quick question, what do you do with the old one? Is it still usable?
We will probably deactivate it. I believe what they were gonna do is they wanted to use it down at the sewer plant. So if they had something to unload, it's getting tippy when they pick up the sanders and the plows, is my understanding. But for small deliveries like chemicals at the sewer treatment plant, they can use it. So that was excellent.
Have a motion?
Move to award a contract to equipment lease for the Northeast Inc. for the purchase of a CAT 2P50 CNI pneumatic tire lift truck forklift in the amount of $76,325.26.
Second by Mr. Goodrich, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. It is unanimous 5-0. And the next one.
Thank you. The next one is award a contract to Univar Solutions for methanol, which is used at the sewage treatment plant. We were gonna do this with the last round of chemicals that we had, 4 weeks ago, but the prices were still fluctuating, and they would not have the prices for the bid. So this is the latest and greatest we have in the bid. It's an essential chemical at the sewage treatment plant. It's gone up significantly by 76%.
I see, is it based on an index?
It's based on an index.
Historically, it's not.
Correct.
So we'll talk about this in a bit when Nancy goes over her presentation, but all chemical prices right now are just going through the roof. Any questions for Kevin? What's this used for? It's a sewer treatment plant.
It's at the sewage treatment plant, it's in the process. I know I believe it's added as it goes into the aeration, and then it gets public room, and that helps out with some of the sediment. I know where the tank is, the silo that they keep it in, but. Will could get you a lot of details on it.
So Nancy, with the huge price increase, what's the incremental budget increase? It says $300,000 for the year. Is that up from 200,000 or?
Yeah, it'll be in our presentation. I can't give up the off the top of my head, but
Actually,
it's,
fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's unpleasant. Very unpleasant.
If there's no other questions, I'll take a motion.
Move to award contract to Univar Solutions USA to provide methanol at a unit price of the current per month Methanex MNDRP index plus $1.82 a gallon. The annual estimated cost is $300,000.
Second by Ms. Canfield. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Hazard mitigation plan.
So my name is Corey Miles, I'm the coastal management officer for the town.
Corey, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Good.
Here to request select board approval resolution to accept and adopt the 2022 update to the county Scituate hazard mitigation plan. I'll just provide you with a very brief overview of what's in the plan and what the process is.
Great.
We need a hazard mitigation plan for many reasons. The primary reason is to help us identify the types of hazards that the town can be impacted by, and identify the vulnerable assets that are in the town and the risks that can be associated with damage to those assets. And also, what's pretty important is that if we don't have an approved and up-to-date current plan, FEMA will not provide us disaster money or any other FEMA grant for that matter. So it's important that we accept and adopt the resolution tonight. So to facilitate the next slide, please. Facilitate the update of the plan, we formed the hazard mitigation planning team back in November of 2020. Normally, this is not a 2-year-long process, but there were delays because of COVID and the public outreach process that's associated with it. But we did manage to get through it. There were 2 public workshops, a benefit cost analysis review that was open to the public. We did solicit public feedback through an online survey. And in April, we got a draft put together and submitted that to the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency for initial review and approval. They did come back with some comments, which we addressed, and then we submitted it to them, and then who then approved it on their end and submitted it to FEMA, who then came back to us with their conditional approval letter earlier this month. And once we are approved here tonight, I'll submit the plan back to FEMA, who will then give us back a letter of final approval. I'm just saying, it's a process, but as long as we stay on top of it, we'll get through it. But some of the hazards that are identified, these are the broad categories: flood-related hazards associated with coastal sea level rise and storm surge, and also riverine floods. Winter-related hazards from blizzards, nor'easters, extreme cold, snow, other wind-related hazards tropical storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, thunderstorms, and also wave action. Geologic, and some of these hazards are more impactful than others. And, so there's geologic hazards, earthquakes, which we probably are not gonna get a lot of earthquakes in Scituate, but nonetheless, we did look at that hazard profile. Drought, extreme heat related hazards, fire, and invasive species. And within each one of those hazards, we broke it down into several more specific issues. And then we evaluated the types of sectors that are vulnerable to these hazards. So in the economic sector, we looked at property values and damages, business and work interruptions, the indirect and direct impacts that has on the economy. And then also, of course, our critical infrastructure and facilities, which can be, interrupted or damaged, of course, from hazards, storms, floods. And then environmental, that are natural services, ecosystem services, pollution, habitat, and individual as well. One thing to note is that the plan, with the exception of dam failure, does not address human-caused hazards. So things like cyber attacks and terrorism are not included in this plan. And also another thing to note is that climate change has a direct and indirect impact on all of these hazard profiles. So each section contains a separate write-up about the effects of climate change on that impact, or on that hazard. So overall, the plan is very long. It's over 300 pages. It's very detailed. And it identifies and prioritizes over 40 mitigation actions. So if you want to peruse that at some point, it's on our website, and I think I've sent you all a copy previously as well. So we have a 5-year window to begin to implement some of those things. We're not on the hook to implement any of these actions, but we did prioritize them and rank them. So once we have an approved plan, next steps, we can talk about how to implement it, and we'll probably need grant funding in order to do that. And luckily, there is a grant window that's opening up in October. That's pretty significant. I think we can apply for up to $15 million from Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, specifically to implement actions in the plan. And then we'll have to, evaluate it annually, and then in 5 years, we start all over. So that's an overview of the plan. So hoping that you will accept and adopt the resolution.
Great, thank you, Corey. It's easy to find on our website. If you just go on the search in the upper right-hand corner, type in hazard mitigation, and it's embedded in one of those documents. It's 364 pages, very detailed, lots of graphs, lots of maps, all kinds of stuff. Lot to read. If you could just comment on, do you know what the #1 priority is? Like when this goes into place, do you remember what the top priority was?
It's probably something related to coastal flooding, yeah. They're all ranked, I don't think they're ranked in order of what's the most prioritized, but they're ranked relative to each other in terms of how feasible they are, how expensive it is, and what the overall impact it has on mitigating a specific hazard. So there's, out of the 42 actions, the majority of them are related to coastal hazards.
Any questions for Corey?
My question is similar to yours, Tony. What will your process be to identify, so you have your prioritization list, but then obviously you'll look at that and prioritize the prioritization list. So will you be coming back before the board to assist in that? Just because it will obviously involve, financial planning.
Well, I don't think we'll be coming back in front of the board to do prioritization. I think what we're doing right now is looking at what we have that's most implementable, most feasible, and what's the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. So there's the grant opportunity that comes in October, and they want to fund projects that are almost shovel ready, that don't have to go through a long period of public review and comment permitting. So,
Do we have any that are in that state right now?
yeah, the oceanside seawall,
Okay.
is something that we will probably submit for. And, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to ask follow-up on that, such as like the sewer issue down in Oceanside, where we're worried about the
Yeah.
pump station being inundated.
So the oceanside seawall project will help to mitigate that risk to the pump station. So because of if the wall is not elevated and repaired, there is still a risk to that pump station from flooding.
As we look at each project, then you look at how many boxes you're checking on that funding. Coastal, well, okay, we're checking 3 or 4 boxes on that one. This is a nice project, but we're only checking 1 box, so maybe that's not a project we put in first, maybe, so that's, we actually had a meeting on that last week.
Yeah,
And started talking about some of those things, what's ready, what checks the most boxes in the ocean side. Because of that, pump station was like, and it's pretty much, I think it's all ready, isn't it, Karen? It's pretty much, I think, ready to go. I think we have to extend the permit, otherwise it's all designed.
and there is an action thing, so we would have to act some.
But we can use this document to help us get more. So for example, the Lighthouse Point Army Corps of Engineers thing that we just gave them our design money to, is that another one that would?
That could be another, it's not as far along in the design process, but that's another one. But that would also be something with federal dollars to us, it's not because of that, doing the design, but Corey is sticking her head in every single bucket of money she can find out there, trying to identify.
It is, sometimes each individual grant program has different priorities of their own, so it's kind of like a mix and match, what matches the best.
That's Corey, how long you been here now?
7 months.
7 months, she walked in the door, was like, hey, yo, we finished it, it has a mitigation plan for us. She's done a great job on this, really. Hit the ground swimming, like, better way to put it. So,
It's quite a challenge.
she deserves a lot of credit for that, just getting out there.
That was the first comment I wanted to make, was thank you so much for your leadership on this. The document, it is, the 300 pages is actually very engaging and thorough, and does give the blueprint for going forward, so thank you for shepherding that, as you said, there you go. I do want to note the other project, which has already, a grant has been put in, the other shovel ready is the nourishment on Minot Beach. Not for the whole thing, but
Yes.
that grant was just submitted, right?
Yes, we did apply for, I think it's $2 million for that. So we'll hear back from them hopefully by the fall. That's supposed to.
Is there sand available? Because we've done this a number of times, there's been no sand that's available on matches.
Last time there was sand available, we didn't get it. It was from the dredge project in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I don't know if that went anywhere, I know they told some people they could have it, but I haven't heard the sand actually, so. We got the money, we'll find the sand.
It'll have to come from an upland source.
Andrew?
I just want to double down, I mean, you go through all these different disasters and what's known and trying to figure out the known unknowns. Just for the folks at home to take a look at it, because it is remarkable work from all different types of things to think of, and hopefully some of this we'll never have to use, but we know we will. So, yeah. Everything, most of us use weight retention, anything, it's fabulous to go through, so thank you.
Great. And yes, collaboration with all the different departments is a really comprehensive document. And as Corey mentioned, I don't know how much it costs us, but I know how much money we are trying to get from FEMA, and it pales in comparison to the money that we need after a storm hits here. So it is required for that. So it's great work for our future, but also mandatory work for us to continue to get better funding.
We also do very well on the raising of the houses on those grants. This is required for that. Corey does a lot of work on that. I think we're probably one of the most successful communities around in getting money to provide actual dollars to residents to make their properties more resilient.
Great. All right, any questions from the audience? Seeing none, can I have a motion?
Move to approve and adopt the 2022 master mitigation plan.
Second?
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous, 5-0. Corey, thanks for coming in, thanks for the great work.
Thank you, Corey.
All right, the next topic of discussion this evening is a discussion vote for a sewer connection at 141 Driftway. Greg Morris.
Good evening.
How are you?
Doing well yourself? For the record, Gregory Morris, registered engineer, Morris Engineering, representing my client Paul Sheeran, who's property owner of 141 Driftway. Mr. Sheeran acquired the property last year. He's divided it into 3 individual lots, and he's been constructing over the past year 2 single-family homes there and a duplex building on that property. When we originally filed for applications there, we were led to believe that the property in its entirety, all 3 buildings could connect to the municipal sewer system, which is just off the back of the property. There's 1 existing stub onto the property. That does not appear to be the case without coming to this board for a special exception, if you will, to extend the sewer system. We don't want to ask for a special exception here. We don't want to extend the sewer system. What we would like to do is on lot 1 and lot 2, which are the single-family home lots, we'd like to construct individual septic systems. I can assure you that those 2 lots comply with all Title V requirements. They comply with all Scituate Board of Health requirements for placement of a septic system. Lot 3, which is the duplex dwelling, would connect to the existing sewer stub that already exists on that lot. We have submitted septic plans to the Board of Health for lots 1 and 2, the single-family homes. Title V regulations, however, specify that if sewer is available to a property, that they must tie into a property. I don't feel that sewer is readily available. Again, it's only available in those 2 lots if there's an exception in an expansion of the sewer system. If it was readily available, we would be connecting and have a sewer permit in hand at this point. So really what I'm asking is I'm asking for you to confirm that sewer is not available for the single-family homes at this property, so that we can move forward with the septic system approvals in this case. We have met with town administrator back in February or March, I believe, and the discussion at the time is exactly that. There's 1 stub, we're entitled to 1 connection, but on the other 2 lots, we can move forward with septic systems.
So the line that goes back is a main line, and the sewer department does not want multiple cuts into that line. So the design that Mark had put forth, with 3 lines going into a catch basin, and then that catch basin tying in to the main line to the stub that exists. And the determination made by the sewer department from that catch basin to the sewer line where those 3 came together was actually an extension of the sewer system. And that requires your approval. So when we filed with the Board of Health for septic, and Drew was here, the Board of Health's position was, you show me a plan with sewer, so you have to show me that you can't do that connection before I'll take up the septic. So I think this is a first in the history of the board, that someone is coming to you to say no. Please tell me no. It's not like it's gonna happen before, but, Mr. Shealy is, if you say he has connected sewer, connected sewer. If you say that the sewer connection is not available, then they will stop work permitting the septic. But they showed the sewer, they showed the connection, so it's his position as the permitting authority that he has to have something saying you can't actually make that connection. And I think the sewer department, Kevin's here, but I think the sewer department is of the same mind. There's one connection to that pipe and only one connection to that pipe will be made. If you wanna do all three, that's fine. If you wanna do the one and septic, that's fine too, particularly given we are back under our number, as the thing about the drought gets our sewer number back down. But we are under that number, but we have been pushing pretty hard against that cap the last couple months, so I know Bill goes back and forth saying, I like to stay under, don't put any more in. But again, that's up to you. Kevin's here to answer questions, and so is, happy and student health issue.
Drew, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, the plan originally showed sewer, I just want the proper authority to say no, so that I'm not overstepping my boundaries and taking that responsibility away from you.
And before I open up the board, if you could just give us a quick explanation as to why.
Sure, so when I look at a site like this for new development, literally the first question that I ask as an engineer is this a septic site or is this a sewer site? Way back when I looked at this job in 2020, I called the sewer department, I said, there's a sewer pipe at the back of the property, what's the potential here to tie in? I was told there's a sewer pipe at the back of the property you can tie in. I was given a tie card showing where the sewer stuff was. I went to the planning board, I divided the property into the 3 individual plots. Comments were provided by Mr. Brandon, which said we had to provide plans documenting how we were gonna tie in to the system. I spoke with Mr. Brandon at length on multiple occasions over the phone. He told me to use an 8-inch pipe at this location, a 6-inch pipe at that location, to place the manhole in a certain location. We did that. We permitted the plans with the Conservation Commission, with the Planning Board, and ultimately my client moved forward with a building application. The building department issued 3 building permits. The buildings are up at this point. When he went to make the connection this past winter, he was told that the sewer connection is now deemed a expansion of the system. That had never been mentioned before, so that's how we got to this point.
So tell me why, like, why would you want, like Jim mentioned, and we're all nodding, those people want to get on the sewer, and you're actually requesting that we only allow it for one house and not the other 2?
Sure.
Why?
So, in my 12 years of doing this type of work in the town of Scituate, I think I've been before this board 2, possibly 3 times, requesting a connection to sewer for a case like this. Every time I've come before the selectmen asking for that, it's always been your side of the table looking at me saying, is it possible to get a septic system here? We're close to our capacity. Can you get a system on this property? And the only times I've ever been granted permission to connect to sewer has when I've told you, no, the property is significantly constrained. There were issues that prevent a septic system. Tonight, I'm telling you that these lots are all on pure sand and gravel. They can support septic systems. They can comply with every requirement that Title V in the Scituate Board of Health has. So
you're just trying to do a good deed for the town?
I'm trying to provide my client either a sewer connection or a septic connection. Neither department will issue the connection at this point. You know, we've spent significant money believing that we could move forward with the septic systems based off of the conversations we had over the winter to redesign the entire site. And we'd like to move forward with that as expeditiously as possible, because these homes are set to be occupied August 1st.
We'll get to a resolution to that.
I think Mr. Morse is saying he's trying to comply with previous directives from the board in terms of septic over storage.
Yeah.
So we all know money comes into play, right? So is it cheaper to do, I mean, I find it hard to believe it would be cheaper to build two leaching fields than to hook up to the sewer.
At the end of the day, it's almost the exact same cost.
And again, just one thing, Tony, the only expansion we've done since I've been here is the one we did a couple weeks ago down in
The board, I'll open it up to the board. Who wants to start? Karen?
You answered a lot of the questions that I had, because this is very unusual. Tony asked the obvious ones, so I wouldn't want to do that. The only question I have, and I'm not even sure if it's you, Greg, or if it's Jim or Drew. In the
in the event that we deny the extension of the sewer tonight, you go forward with permitting the Title V for septic. Some reason, and I know you do good work, so let's say the Board of Health says, no, this won't work. What happens? I mean, they're gonna, I mean, in theory, would they have to come back and say, we change our minds, we'd like to do the extension?
Yeah, in theory, but, I defer to Drew and the engineer. If he's providing a plan, he's stamped that says works.
Right, but Drew has to go through this process to confirm.
Generally, Mark does good work. I mean, he's not gonna give us a
Right,
second.
it's a what if, that it's such
Right,
an
I
unusual
would doubt it, but
circumstance.
yes, in the very rare case that the Board of Health says, no, these don't work for whatever reason, and they'd have to come back here. And in that case, you would almost have to approve it because he would not have the ability to put in something.
I reserve the right to have another question.
Yes. Anyone else with a comment?
When we allow the people down the Driftway to get an emergency sewer tie-in because their system is failing, the major reason for us, I think, granting it was because we were all concerned about the environmental impacts of a failing septic system in an environmentally sensitive area. So my just general question is, do you have any of the same issues there? I mean, I know the sewer treatment plant is at the end of the driveway, but is there any reason environmentally to want sewer? And I know we're arguing the opposite around here, but.
We're not directly on the river as the Riverway condos were. We are significantly set back from the river. These septic systems are entirely outside of the buffer zones and wetlands in that location.
In this particular location, not to be flippant, but there's another facility that's discharging into that river already.
And there's going on and on.
When you say significantly, how far away is it from the
From the wetland, it's probably about 150 feet. From the river, it's probably about 500 feet.
So 150 feet from sensitive area. Correct.
100 feet is jurisdiction. 100 feet from the wetland, what's under the jurisdiction of the conservation commission?
Good question.
It's more of a comment, I mean, I selfishly from a town standpoint, you'd want you can revenue for the consumer, but it would be like not feel comfortable to force someone to have sewer who doesn't want it, and there's people who want it, but we can't get it to. I don't know, just. Point is going there, but it seems.
Certainly one side.
Yeah, well, my only comment is, I think it's unfortunate that it's had to go back and forth to multiple departments. And we've got to figure out a way to bring folks together when we're coming up with a solution that may not be so simple. So having those sidebar conversations, obviously, led you down the wrong path, and I don't know, what checks and balances need to be, but it just seems like we need some.
What happens at the beginning, when he filed the plan that showed storage, and the Board of Health is up.
No, I know,
Okay, but then the Board of Health's like, okay, there's storage, we don't need to be involved.
No, I understand where we're at, but from what Greg said in his story, is that he was led to believe that it was just a direct tie into sewer, so they designed it, came back only to find out that it's not, so now he has to go design septic. Am I correct in what you said?
You are.
Okay, so that's all, doesn't need to be a big discussion, I just think that we need some checks and balances, so we don't put all our engineers through all this stuff. Obviously, it's costly to have a homeowner have to pay for two complete different sets of designs for engineering, so that's all. But I know the revenue component, but I also am a believer that if the septic is in a safe area, then it's also good for our groundwater and it's environmentally a good solution as well, so. Okay.
My questions are, so is the design actually different would you have to design it differently now than you would have when you put the plans together? Dramatically different?
I would have designed the site differently had I designed it from as septic on day one. We've retrofitted the plans to
No,
accommodate
sewer,
septic.
I'm talking sewer.
Sewer,
So
I
the
designed it initially as a sewer connection.
Right, is the plan any different based on additional information you've gotten since you set up the plan for the sewer, or is it the same sewer hookup plan, same sewer design?
It's the same sewer design.
Right, so there's no additional cost, so had you not been able to put it in, if it didn't hurt, then you have the plan and you've designed the plan and that's what it is.
Correct.
Now you're actually gonna have additional engineering costs, because you're gonna have to design two septic systems.
Which is done, I believe, he's already done that as far as conservation.
So and Andrew, there's no right or wrong answer here. There's the other side of it, which we'll talk about in probably 10 or 15 minutes, is our sewer enterprise fund, which we have to raise rates on dramatically right now because of increased costs and chemicals and whatever. And the way that we need to raise money for this is to add more hookups to our current infrastructure, because all of that money goes right into the revenue side of things. So that's the other side of this component. Do we save two houses and save them for not using capacity for somewhere else, like North Scituate or wherever, or do we hook up these two houses and get the $30,000 because our sewer enterprise fund needs the $30,000, so that we don't have to raise everybody's rate by the 30% that we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. So those are the two sides of the.
Right, but essentially, if you do that and vote in that manner, these poor people have paid thousands for a septic design because they were told to go down that route. So I would be inclined to do that.
I don't understand that. That's a sunk cost. They paid to design a sewer. I didn't know that you paid to design a.
The septic's done, yeah, it's in the backup.
But it's in both, but they've done both.
But they wouldn't.
But they wouldn't have.
But you did. It's done. Right now, today, you've done both, right?
We've done both because we came in and we spoke with the town, and the town said we were allowed one connection. We said, all right, we'll design two septic systems if we're not allowed that two other connections.
But no, I understand there was some miscommunication, which Maura talked about, but at this point in time, you've designed both, so it doesn't matter cost-wise which way we go. You design this way, you design that. So we push the sewer one way or the other. So, we'll have to design that. I personally believe that we should hook them up to the sewer and we should get the money because we need the money in the enterprise. And I don't think for big picture plans, unless going more Scituate, this additional usage of two houses is going to have any impact on that. That's my take.
My take is, I think to Andrew's point, we are close to our limit as we are. And we are going to, at some point soon, have somebody else come up that really needs the connection. And I would rather reserve, they've got plan B, and if it needs the board of health, I'd rather keep that in our back pocket, whether it's to keep it on the pile for making capacity someplace else, or for the unforeseen. We've had that where we're bringing our kids because we're at the limit, and somebody's like, I didn't, whatever, and we need to be able to let them extend or whatever. So I think this has been an extremely unusual case, but.
That's never happened. We've never not been able to give somebody an emergency hookup because of capacity.
No, but there's been hand wringing this, we're up against the limit. It's always like, well, one more house. Here we have a situation where,
Oh, I understand that side, but in our revenue stream for this budget, we have to hook up so many people to our current infrastructure. And this is an ideal situation for us. There's a pipe going right down the back of that place, 200 feet from the sewer treatment plant, and the town needs the money. So So you can hold it and wait and see if somebody needs to commercially hook up, but we need, whatever it is, 30 hookups a year to go into our enterprise fund, into our current infrastructure.
But do we have that estimate? I mean, we've got a great deal of building going on right now.
But we need that anyways. We need the additional one anyways, because we always have that. But we need to budget into our budget. We need, whatever it is, 20, 30, 40 houses, and in addition to that, going into the money that we've already built in infrastructure. So,
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is a duplex considered one hookup fee or two hookup fees?
and
Everybody's just turning. Two, okay, so. split the difference there.
So that's going anyways. So it's really the two additional houses. So, I mean, we're not gonna lose either way, but that's my, preached it for years, so that's my take on it. I think we have to get a number that says we need to add 50 houses to our infrastructure right now because we need $500,000 worth of revenue so that we don't have to raise our sewer treatment, our sewer rates as much as we are going to tonight.
And what will it cost us if we exceed our limit?
If you exceed your limit, then the state will come and put a moratorium on your hookups until you get back on. Which town had.
Do they fine towns for exceeding limits? Shut it down. I mean, I'm just, the reason I'm asking that question is I totally understand the revenue part of
They
this.
can, nobody will come in and say, you need a plan to get blah, blah, blah.
But we were starting to sweat about 2 months ago, about, oh my God, we're like 99.9%, whatever it was. And all of a sudden it's like, oh geez. And now, when somebody's coming and saying, I don't want to be hooked up, I don't know what the argument is. I personally think if you don't want to hook up, you've got the septic system to do it. It's only 2, but 2 plus 2 plus 2. So, I wouldn't do it.
So the motion's written both ways, approved or not, so.
So
Can we do a vote, can I have a motion?
Right, so it's very, very strange that we just plugged the biggest hole in the system on Cedar Point, where it was at 90-something%, and the projections were it was gonna get down to 70%, and then a month ago it was back up to 90-something% again.
And we had a ton of rain.
Right, so that's always good,
Right, and Will's putting together, I mean, the big thing is in between there, we connected those condos that Karen was just mentioning. That had a big amount back in the system. Will's looking, he's putting together, and we'll come in over the summer and show you, here's what we did Cedar Point, here's everything that's gone in since we've done Cedar Point and what that's done. So he's working on that now, should be almost just about done, he's on vacation.
I mean, Toll Brothers is gonna be big.
Toll Brothers keeps adding a lot, I mean, they're 2 years ahead of schedule right now.
They added a whole bunch of it.
There's a whole new chapter or
Oh, no,
whatever. There's a huge new family.
So when we
That
look
was
at
a
it
5-year
initially, it was
project
like,
to be done.
here's where we are now, here are the 20 projects that are coming in, it's gonna bring us up to this capacity. And then we literally plugged the biggest hole in the system, thinking that that was gonna give us the capacity to sewer North Scituate. And now we're hearing we're at 90% of it. What's that?
I think that's an overstatement. I don't.
Maybe a little bit, but not a lot.
We used the Drew project to leverage the Mass Works grant with Cedar Point to create capacity for Drew. But they were,
Well, more than,
they were making almost 1.5 capacity that they would use plus another 50%. Based on what we thought we would have to Cedar Point, but.
all right, well, I'm not gonna blame, if you guys wanna do that, then do what you want, but that's the other side of the argument.
So we got, no, I guess I wanna say, I agree with you that, I mean, we have to define money that's there. This is, to me, this is like the perfect half of, or that we are hooking up, so we're getting some money, and then we're not, it's kind of, I don't know, we're all a little bit unhappy, because it's like, it's half and half, but I,
But what if Nancy came to us and said, in order for us to hit our budget, we have to add 40 units to our infrastructure every year?
I'm confident that we can probably find them, it doesn't need to be burdened on this.
So this is 40 in addition to development. This is 40 in addition to a flat level development that we need anyways. You find it?
People that want us to go, sure.
We still don't have capacity. When we have
That's
to, what we say.
So I would suggest that what we need, and we've talked around this for a while. We need to have a thorough analysis of the number of homes that are, we know how many homes are projected for the next, 4 years because of our building permits. What that looks like for rent, what that looks like for demand on capacity. And then do the math, once we have those numbers, then we do the math, right? And so we have all the data, we just have to put it together. Somebody needs to put it together.
This is working.
Sorry?
Will's working on all that.
Will's working on it. So it is critical we have that double-edged conversation. Capacity, revenue.
Talk about it in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Make a motion?
Yep.
I will move that the select board deny extension of the sewer system located at 141 Driftway.
Second.
Second by Ms. Conley. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Aye. 4-1 in favor of denying the sewer. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next topic of discussion is authorization of town administrator to make a determination of an emergency situation for expedited design selection process. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 7, Subchapter 53.
So, as the board is aware, we have hired an OPM for the Lighthouse project. He has reviewed all the studies that were done, mostly by the Historic Society. We have one engineering report that says we need to make repairs to stabilize that almost immediately. Some work has been done. So what I'm asking is we are doing a little more due diligence to determine what needs to be done, something needs to be done now, or we can, but what I'm asking is to give me the authority, if we get to the point where we have to go, that we can waive the design selection, not do that whole process. Pick a designer in the short term and get going to make sure we get that shored up and ready to deal with as quickly as possible. I mean, the engineering report came in before the November storm. It didn't blow off then, but it is severely deteriorated. And once they get their due diligence out, that we may have to do very quickly to get that project underway and get something going. The other thing it allows us to do, the expedited design, we'll be able to focus a little bit more on firms that specialize in this type of project. Give someone who's really done this type of thing before getting going. Really, the design selection process can take 3 months, 4 months. 3 months. Yeah. And if we get a move, we don't want to have to wait to do that. So just to give you the authority to clear the emergency, do the expedited process, get an engineer design on board, and get the work started. Then we'll make a determination at that point, we have to do an emergency procurement also, but that's the next question.
Questions?
Will you still review the design selection with us?
Yeah, oh yeah, you'll have to prove it.
It just allows you to kind of go around and.
I don't have to do the whole.
Multi-bidding process.
Right, so if I stop, it'll be more than $50,000, I'll still have to go back and do. They still do recommend that you do a couple firms, so we'll, we have the Historic Commission has one of their representatives involved, so we'll make sure we do a very bifurcated review of a couple firms then.
The next step on when, you're looking to get this accomplished before fall.
We're looking to get answers and get started before the bad weather, yes.
Okay.
Preliminarily, the engineer looked at it and said, the best thing to do might be to just take the entire land off, put it on a truck, secure the brickwork, redo it, bring it back and put it back on. But a lot of work has to go on before you do that, measurements and things like that, so the faster we get the designer on board to get everything ready, so we can do that if we have to, the better off we'll be.
Would we need any sort of a placeholder on the fall special in case there's any funding or anything?
We already have, we have 100,000 for the OPM and $1.9 million for the work.
Yeah, I said it'd be enough under additional costs.
So I probably would know by then, Andrew, so.
you think of any other examples where this authority might be useful?
This is only given for this project.
Yeah, it's really only if you have an emergency. So
It's a blanket
No,
authorization.
it's one.
for this project, let me just,
It's a part of authorization.
what's a blanket? I don't have anything
Well,
else
we'll have
that,
to specify.
Oh, that's not what you told me.
I don't have anything else that would be an emergency.
All right, let me give you an example then. When and if we actually buy them, like I mentioned, if all of a sudden we have some inspection done and engineering reports that, you know, the house is about to fall in, you know, implode, would this type of authorization be useful in that type of example? I mean, you wouldn't do it for a school, or you wouldn't do it for a public building, but since we have so many historic assets, it occurred to me that
Yeah, possibly, I mean, in that case, you'd probably be looking for an exemption from procurement, get someone in to do the work to show it up, as opposed to a designer to design all the work. Possibly. The nature of this job, we don't want to do any work until we have someone who's looked at it, figured out how to go about doing it, so we don't, you know, pop the lantern off and then we can't get back on.
Right.
So, I mean, this is the only, if this was gonna be used anyplace else, you would know about it well in advance of us having to do it. This is the only project we have going.
well, I'm just looking at it from the viewpoint of it could be useful as a tool for us to have.
Yeah, could be, right. I mean, we put in for procurement relief today for the water treatment plant. If we need to do something, we just need to get someone in and do it, so we fill out the forms, they're kind of push it. They're pretty quick, so we can skip procurement, not have to go, just get that guy in there to get in there and fix it. This,
Same thing.
yeah, I mean, those are more common, the procurement ones, than this is the first time in 27 years that I've done a design one, just again, because of the unique nature of that structure. Make sure whatever we do out there before we touch it, we're ready to go.
So just to clarify, when we spoke, that wasn't the case, so this, it says here,
Slap in the back of that.
so it says here, it's only to expedite designer selections. So this wouldn't be building, it's only designer, and who deems whether it's an emergency, like, you have to come to us?
Well, in this case, you are giving me the authority to declare the emergency. Right. That's what you're doing.
So, but this also completely goes against the open bidding process and,
You have to comply with it to the best of your ability, Tony. So I don't have to do a printed RFP and put it in the central register and all that.
oh, I understand,
But I still
but
have to get it.
that's what we do.
Right.
So you just can't go in and deem it's an emergency for anything, like if we wanted to buy needed golf carts at the golf course. You know, so who deems the emergency? And you have to bring that to the board.
If you look at the executive action, health and safety of any person will be endangered because of the time required for the selection of a designer, interior design and program and construction manager. Right. Yeah. So.
So why must be sent to town council to see is why?
But again, you have to come to the board and say, I'm deeming this an emergency.
I do not have to give you permission to do that if you vote for this, but I would come back and tell you that we deemed it an emergency. We're gonna go forward with a
So I guess
truncated.
the question for us is, do we do it for this lighthouse and then repeal it? Or do we just keep this as open for infinity?
I can't just say, the roof's leaking at the golf course, so I'm gonna declare an emergency. I have to have something, in this case, we have an engineering report that said there's a real imminent threat. Once the OPM certifies it, yes, there's a threat here. Under these definitions, then I can go forward and do this.
No,
I just can't say, I think it's an emergency.
No, I understand. You have to get an engineer to say, this rookie leaf at school could fall on a kid's head and hurt him. This is an emergency. I'm gonna bypass the process and I'm gonna hire Jim to fix to design the roof.
I mean, in that case, I'd probably, didn't be a procurement emergency, that I just get someone to fix the roof, because it's not a whole big. Right, this is a little,
So I guess the question for the board is, do we leave this in place for the lighthouse, which we're needing as an emergency? Which I think we all agree, right, it's could blow over a storm and hurt somebody. And do we then repeal it, or do we just leave it in place?
Well, I think you can just make the motion and include for the Scituate Lighthouse, and then if it comes up again, we can, if there's another situation where it needs emergency declaration, we can do it again. But if you do a broad base, it leaves it open.
Like, do other towns just have this authority for the town administrator?
I told you, I've never done this in 27 years, never seen it, never even heard of it before this. Because.
Right, this.
So then if you have it, then let's be conservative, and at the end of the motion, just say, you know, in reference to the Scituate Lighthouse project, that's what this is for, right?
His authority is defined by Mass General law too, and it's not, you know, as it's the example of, you know, he just decides something's emergency. He has to comply with the law for the emergency order, I think.
Yeah, and I'm not thinking something nefarious is going on here, I'm just wondering, like, does Norwell have this as an open-ended document for any other town?
Never come up before. I've done emergency procurement for the actual work. We've done that, I think, twice in the water treatment plant, just since I've been here. But I've never done emergency design, it's just, I can't touch that lighthouse unless I have the design in place to do it.
Yeah.
So I guess, Paul, is there value in leaving it open? I guess, would you see any value in us leaving it open?
That's the question I was asking.
Yeah.
I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of another.
Nancy?
Jim and I had discussed this ahead of time, so she can shoot it in. This is an amendment to designer selection law process that we have in town. So when we talked about the other emergency waivers, there is an entity to whom we appeal, DCAM, that's where we filed the emergency waiver today. For the designer selection law, it's up to the town. So if you were going to amend it, my personal opinion would be to leave it as is and change it from town administrator to select board. So that you have the process for declaring emergency within your procedures, so you can move forward. But it would just be a change as to who can declare the emergency.
So authorize the select board to make a determination on this.
But what you're suggesting is we want to endorse this language in our bylaws, or whatever that goes.
We just don't have these procedures. And the OPM is like, what are your emergency procedures? We don't have it because it's just like not in 27 years now, it's the same for me. I've never seen this happen. We had to go check the law to see what it was we had to do.
So that's just my question, like, are we saying, let's incorporate this as part of our, where would it go?
Well, what Nancy just said is vote to authorize the select board.
Yeah,
to
I'm
make
not
the
really, I'm not really care who does it.
In order to do it, the town has to adopt an emergency procedure to declare the emergency.
Right. So I get it, and that's not how this was presented, or that I understood it tonight. So if we're saying we need an emergency procedures, and we gotta put this in somewhere, great, then that's a whole different line of thought than me saying we need to do something for the lighthouse. And we can decide whether it's a select board or a
In reality, it's for the lighthouse.
But we're putting this language into something forever now, so that you have the ability, or we have the ability to declare an emergency for design.
You can repeal it at any time too.
I don't think this is
That's
so
not-
responsible.
yeah,
At
that's-
this point, he just wants to make it permanent and have it in the right place. That's all. So I think the discussion now is, we want to change town administrator to select board to do this, or do we want to just keep this town administrator?
Well, and I think to your point, so if we were to be part of our process, I would suggest that we put in the charter under duties and responsibilities of whomever it is we assign that duty and responsibility, would be the way to memorialize that. Oh, there's big thoughts.
It's just a policy of the board.
It doesn't make it much more difficult than it needs to be.
It doesn't need to be.
So where is this gonna sit? Is this
It's
just
part
a
of the
policy?
designer selection process of the town, which is part of the town's procurement policies.
So it's just part of the procurement policy?
Yeah, it's part of the designer selection process, we just, which is all the paragraph. And now we'll have 2 paragraphs.
Right, and now we understand.
just so we'll follow along, right?
So does anyone have any thought on whether it should be we declare the emergency or the town administrator does?
I actually think we should have the town administrator authorized because he's boots on the ground and knows what the situation is, and it would be something that either is so timely we won't be able to convene on it and we should have us, but that person should have us.
See, the roof blows off Boston Tower.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have historic assets that do need particular design services that are different than run-of-the-mill. I mean, if something happens at the main farmhouse, we own a lot of historic assets that are vulnerable. Mitigation may be in here.
Ready for motion?
Yeah.
Move to authorize the town administrator to make a determination of an emergency situation for expedited designer selection process under Mass General Law, Chapter 7C, Paragraph 53.
Second?
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. That'll be added to the procurement process. All right. Next topic of discussion is adjustments to the fiscal year 2022 revolving fund limits. Nancy.
So annually, as part of the annual town meeting, there's an article to authorize the expenditure limits for the 53 and half revolving funds. So you're all familiar with the senior program revolving fund for appointments fees, it's a whole bunch of them. Solar array and wind turbine are also these types of revolving funds. Normally, it's never an issue, I don't believe I've ever been before the board to talk about this. In this case, because of the voluntary curtailment agreement, we have exceeded the expenditure limit. So I'm asking, I had asked by the statute, the advisory committee who's already voted in favor of this, and now the select board to increase the limit for fiscal 22, which expires in 2 days, by $100,000. And then we will have to have another one of these votes next year because of the curtailment agreement will still be, it's still in place. And we didn't know that at the time when I wrote that to the article.
Questions from the board? The only thing I ask Nancy, and it probably is less relevant today, but that we look at the expenditures compared to revenue, so that we can see,
And I'm gonna put something together for you, I want to pull the monthly. When we get the revenue from National Grid is whenever they have us a check, but I want to do it by the actual National Grid statement and see how much we were generated by month, because I think that's more of what you want to see.
yeah. And for the board, just moving forward, just so we can see, I mean, right now we're saying we're gonna spend more than we had historically, and we should just look at the revenue side to see. Motion?
Increase the expenditure limit of the Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53(1)/2, wind turbine revolving fund is previously set by April 2021 annual town meeting, Article 12, by 100,000 to 550,000 for fiscal year 22. Second.
Second by Ms. Conley, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous. 0, great. Now we are going to have a discussion and vote, or possibly vote, on the sewer and water rate.
Which one would you like to go first?
Let's
Yes,
start
sewer first.
with the sewer.
Okay, so if it's bad news, good news, go with bad news first.
Yeah. So the one thing that I will say is we do have to vote these at the latest at our next meeting if we want them to go into effect for the quarterly billing of the first quarter of this fiscal year.
Feel free to vote tonight. I have no objection to that. I was not expecting you to do so, but I don't mind being happily surprised. So.
So what I would tell you, as I have in the past, we have read all of this stuff, we don't need to go line by line, but tell us your story.
I'm being technical here, I have a Zoom link and I am sharing my screen. And if you see the cat, I do apologize.
I don't see anything. Let's see. Well, there we go. Woo, no cat.
No, Lucy is, I'm sleeping and that's not how they do things. Okay, so, as the board knows from reviewing this in the last two packets, the sewer enterprise fund has concerns. When the fiscal 23 budget was proposed and recommended and voted by the committee, select board, and then town meeting, it was known that it would have to have an increase of 3 to 4% just to operate. There were concerns raised at the time about what was going to happen with chemical costs and what was going to happen with electricity, but we didn't build any more into that budget because we wanted to see what actually occurred when the Eastern Mass Chemical Cooperative came through. So what are the factors that are driving this? Of course, chemicals, electricity, material costs, debt service in just a small area. We did speak of that there's significant capital projects in the queue, but that's not what's driving this increase. It's just cost for chemicals and electricity for the most part. For the sewer enterprise, a 1% increase in rates is approximately a $21,000 increase in revenue. So the departmental request, as I just went over quickly, was $4.2 million, which is a 9.9% increase. That was nowhere in the same ballpark as the estimated revenues for fiscal 23, which was $3.8 million. So the request was reduced by the town administrator by $320,000, and you have in front of you the areas where it was reduced. And these are the same areas where we're before you tonight saying we not only was the reduction too much, but we're going to have to add back, significantly add back. Chemical and lab supplies, sludge cake disposal, as you know, which is before you for a renewed contract at a higher rate, as well as electricity. So we're have to make up all those costs plus the delta deficit we had of $46,000 when the budget was originally voted. This is the results of the Eastern Mass Chemical Cooperative bid. So we're doing what we should be doing. We're going out with others, a regional bid for chemicals. The average increase, as you see at the bottom of the presentation, is 77.8%. When this budget was coming forward, we were talking, Kevin was recommending 30% increase. So as you can see, it's ridiculous. We really could not imagine that to happen, except we now have the same example with gasoline and diesel. So how does that impact the sewer enterprise as well as the water enterprise? So I highlighted the main chemicals. This is not all the chemicals, but these are the ones that are the real cost drivers. So as you can see, sodium carbonate, which is soda ash, you awarded that contract at your last meeting, that's about a $100,000 increase. When I originally did this presentation for you at the June 14th meeting, methanol we thought was going to be $1.82, a 12.3% decrease. And then Eastern Mass Chemical Cooperative did realize with the bidder that the bid was wrong. It was tied to an index. It was $1.82 plus whatever the index is. So it really is a massive increase. So that methanol alone is looking at a $30,000 increase, which you had asked about earlier, and that's just based on what the index is doing now. That's a variable index that will change every month. So as things get worse, that's going to get worse. Even as I sent this out for Will and Kevin and Sean to take a look at it, Will was sure to let me know that some of the other chemicals, the polymers, also saw large increases, 20%. So they don't use as much, so it's not as radical of a change, but it's still every little bit more expense, more expense, more expense. And this is not looking at if we were to have a major storm event. If there's a major storm event, that stormwater ends up in the sewer system, which causes them to use more chemicals to treat it. The other thing that we did not know as of the last presentation that we now know for this presentation, so bad news that we had to skip a presentation in there, is NetClear, which is the treatment for the chemical we use to treat the copper and the effluent. So wonderful thing, we didn't have to spend $5 million for a new facility to treat the copper, but we can only use this one chemical. There is no other right now. Hopefully there's another one being tested, and that could be an alternative. That chemical increase just came in at 20.8%. Again, not a huge cost driver because we don't use a ton of it in quantity, but again, another piece, another little bit, the 20% here and there. So just as a, sorry, I'm flipping on paper, not flipping on screen. So the chemicals alone are about $181,000 increase. And these are the three that I just mentioned to you. I want to remind you, at the April town meeting that just occurred, we added at a special town meeting portion $50,000 to sewer enterprise just to get them through the balance of fiscal 22 for the chemical costs. So it was already rearing its ugly head then, so it's really, now we know it's going to happen. Electricity, again, it's 23.8% higher than the prior year. Likely to, this year, fiscal 22 is likely to exceed its budget by 10,000, which is an overall 40% increase. We only budgeted a 2% increase. They asked for 30, we gave them 2, we wanted to see what was happening. We already knew we had a deficit. So now on that one, we're looking for an additional 37,000. So you have the additional 181,000, the additional 37,000. Fuel, I don't need to tell you, you all know what's going on with fuel prices. Again, at the special town meeting in April, we added additional funds to sewer and water for fuel expenses. In this case, we're looking for an additional $10,000 for the fuel budget based on what's currently happening with fuel costs. Our fuel bill used to be maybe $9,000 to $10,000 every delivery. Now it's upwards of $20,000 to $25,000 every delivery. Sludge cake disposal, yet another fun thing to talk about. This contract was before you, we presented it to you, it was a 22% increase. This contract had a problem, the vendor came forward to us and said, I can't do this, I'm losing money, I'm going to have to beat the contract. So he refused to renew, we went out to bid, there was only one bidder, and this is what I came back at. This particular line item for the fiscal 23 budget is the level funding. So an additional 48,000 just to meet the contract we have for sludge cake.
Next question. So with that new bidder for that particular sludge cake, did you get a new supplier? And did
It's the same bidder.
It's the same guy.
Same guy, yeah. Nobody else wanted to bid on it. And we didn't really expect, even if you got multiple bidders, that it was gonna change. Because they all have the same problem, fuel costs, disposal costs. I don't know, COVID's responsible for everything, but I just don't know how it can be responsible for everything. It's like supply chain, labor costs, it's just everything. It's far reaching. So good news is the sewer debt service has a rapid decline, so we're able to backfill the project. So the $4 million I&I project is going to fit in there nicely when it does get issued. We are looking at the Clean Water Trust, and we do the water projects for the sewer projects. We weren't going to the Clean Water Trust as often because we're 2% loan, we could do better in the marketplace. Now, not so much. That 2% loan is looking very attractive. So we will be making applications to them for these 2 big I&I projects. And that's just currently what's outstanding from the sewer debt. They don't have a lot outstanding, but they have those 2 big I&I projects for over $4 million. This just shows you what their debt service is going to do, so it's fairly steady. So we're not seeing like the water enterprise where it's all going uphill and our rate discussions are all based on debt service because of the improvements to the infrastructure. In sewer, our rate discussions are because of expenses. Meaning chemical costs, materials, equipment parts. None of this discussion has anything to do with payroll. This is all on the other expense side. This is what is on the capital plan for fiscal 24 through fiscal 27. Again, not a lot of big projects out there. The biggest thing is the influent grit removal. Some of the others, the expansion projects, which seem large, those would have veterans supporting funds. So it really is a fairly reasonable capital plan. The $4.2 million for the I&I for Chain Pond, he's already got 2 I&I projects lined up. So I would think that's going to fall on the next iteration of this plan much farther out. And we could be having that discussion much sooner than everyone thinks about the capital plan. So as I said, it's predominantly level funded for debt service, which is a good thing. We don't need to have that problem with this enterprise fund in addition to everything else. So what about the revenue side? What's going on with revenue? So when you build a budget, you start with your revenues. What are your revenues? And then you say that's what I can spend. That's why we knew when the budget request came in at over $4 million, it could not be supported. What I have in red boxes here for you is the sewer connection fees, which Warren was talking about earlier in the meeting. If you look at what we projected for sewer connection fees, what we're actually bringing in, we are not making our projection. If it had not been for the Riverway condos this year, we would be talking about a major several $100,000 deficit in that particular revenue source. And this particular enterprise fund would be facing a revenue deficit. So the chair and I disagree about sewer connection fees. I like the inflow of the funds. The problem is it's a one-time inflow. So it helps you, but then it's gone. So the next year I have the same problem. If we don't have them that many continuously from year to year, then we have a problem. In this case, this was 14 connection fees, wrote it down somewhere, how many connection fees that was. So that's really not a lot, we're not making it in these 24. It's not even the 30 that you were speaking about earlier. So that's a real concern, the reliance on those connection fees, where they're not a recurring revenue to support the budget. So he's giving me the evil eye, that's fine.
No, no,
So.
you're making my case.
Summation of all these costs that we went through, I told you, this is the worst for the enterprise funds, and the worst rate presentation we're gonna have to go through this cycle. It is $46,000 for the shortfall for the fiscal 23 budget as it was voted, $181,000 additionally for chemicals, $37,000 for electricity, $10,000 for fuel, and that's based on current projections. If things improve, less, if things don't improve, we might have to make an authorization. And then almost $50,000 for sludge paint disposal. So what have the rates been doing historically? It's always a question the board wants to look at. Last year you increased the rates by 9%, prior year was 6%, and then the couple of years before that we got rid of the, it was free usage in the base rate. We got rid of that over a 2-year period, which significantly helped with revenues. So when this initial presentation was built in your June 14th meeting, if you went through it, the recommendation was for a 10% increase, and then we got the net clear, the ethanol information, and so that recommendation changed to a 16% increase in pace over the course of 2 weeks. It's crazy. It is crazy. 16% rate increase on base rate and usage would bring in an additional estimated $339,000. What we need, the summation side that listed all the different cost factors that we're looking at is $323,000. That 16,000 delta, which is about 1%. I'm just looking for a little safety there. We haven't talked about material costs for parts, pumps, any of that. All those lines were reduced, and those costs aren't going down at all. I believe Kevin spoke to you about when he presented the report. Milton Cat sent out a notification that all of their parts are going up 15% for fiscal 23. They're not the only ones. He also spoke to you about the fact that some of these chemicals we can't get. We can't get them in the format we want. If we want 50-gallon jugs, we can only get 5-gallon jugs. We're not having to go further afield or go to get them further back ourselves. So there's additional costs in there. So that is why we are currently at the 16% recommendation to you. But I expect there to be plenty of discussion about that. So what's going on with our neighboring communities? Cohasset is still number 1 in the game. Their average bill is $1,474. And one thing I added on this slide for you is the base rates. If you look at Cohasset, they have a very interesting base rate. So base rate is what you get charged regardless. And then on top of that, you have the usage rate. They have a very high base rate. So it doesn't matter what happens with there's a drought, people use less water, which is how you measure the usage, then you lose that revenue source. They're still making a base rate. So it's an interesting way that they've approached it. Hingham is consumption only, no base rate. And then Kingston has a quarterly service charge and a flat rate usage fee. Marshall has a base rate of $200. Rockland has no base rate, and our base rate currently sits at $71.29 a quarter, which is about $280 annually. So we are currently 4th in the mix of these communities As the board knows, or for those who are watching this at home, Scituate because there's nothing else on TV. The reason why some of these communities don't have any numbers in them is because they don't have sewer. But it's the same communities we use for the water, so we leave them there. Even with a 16% increase, we're still number 4. So we're in the mix. Sewer is not an inexpensive thing to do, when it's provided.
Thank you, Nancy. Great summary, great information here. The only thing I'll comment on the state, I don't know that every town has adjusted for these cost increases in the rates that you have here yet either, so.
I know.
Yeah, so they probably will. All right, let's open it up to the board. Who wants to begin the discussion?
I just have one question, comment, the slide deck for this and for the water rate that we'll have next are excellent, if we can have those, maybe put on the town page, for folks to, it's so clear and it makes the, analysis very accessible, and that would be really good use of that, this is $100, it's $12 a month average increase, at 16%, which sounds better than 16%, but my only concern is that we're gonna have this conversation again in 3 months. Because these are things we can't control. But thank you for the problem. Well,
Yeah.
yes. Maybe this is a bad question to ask, I'll ask it anyway. If this spike, especially in the chemical costs and electricity and fuel costs, turns out to be an anomaly, and things kind of settle back down in a year, it's not gonna happen overnight, but if prices go down, is there some way for us to make this increase? Is there some way to decrease the increase if we find ourselves in a better situation? Because I feel as though if we're asking people to help us eat this cost, I mean, we're gonna have to eat it somehow. Because if we can't be deficit spending in these enterprise funds, because if we are, the town has to make it up. So we're gonna have to face it one way or the other. But what I'm hoping is that if we do this sort of magnitude of increase because of a specific economic situation, I'd like us to tell people that we will give them relief should we see measurable relief at some point.
Absolutely. I think we really institutionalized in the last probably 5 years, having these rate discussions annually. At this time of year, even if there is no decision to raise rates or decrease rates, and have decrease rates, but this is such an anomaly. I think we can only hope that these prices will come back into the normal range. I don't know if they're going to come all the way back to where they were, but to normalize a little bit.
Right.
And if that's the case, we certainly don't want to have the rates inflated for that. And that would not, I don't want to see those funds get siphoned off to something else. So I'm on the same page as you are.
Okay.
So the reason why we increase the rates are for these 5 purposes. If those 5 things can come down, then that needs to be taken into consideration when you next review the rates in the spring.
I think that's reasonable.
I think it's necessary every year.
Yeah, I mean, unless 5 other things go up. I mean, we have to look at
There's
the
not
totality.
much else.
In which case, the board would make that decision with that information. Nobody else was.
So going forward with debt service, there's so much talk about interest rates and what's happening. Do you have any concerns long term, seeing trends, things is that all reflected in some of these projections, or are they?
Yes, I changed all of my debt projections and raised the interest rates out at least a percentage point. And they were conservative as they were. We were running around 3.5, along up to 4.5, and that's why I've spoken to Jim and Kevin that these big I&I projects have to go to the Clean Water Trust. We have to make an application to them to move forward with those because it's going to be cost prohibitive for us to maintain, to do those through the regular marketplace.
Good news is we've heard because the state's got such an influx of ARPA funds that some of the clean water trust now is loan forgiveness. So that's just straight cash. Yes.
The Clean Water Trust is great, but it's a long process.
Mark, do you have any more?
No, I mean, my, not only takeaway, but, are there any industry regulators? This is crazy. There's no control over these increases. I don't know if they all just come from different segments, so there isn't a regulatory agency over this, but this is nuts.
I think it's nuts everywhere. This is inflation, and you'll have something before you at your next meeting, but again, it's being impacted by inflation. But this is the first time in my career that I've had a contractor, a vendor send a force majeure letter. Saying, and it was a chemical contract, we said, we can't get it. Or why are we getting it? We can't get it, we can't comply with contract. It's beyond our control. We're seeing more and more of that in chemicals. They can't find the chemicals, they can't source the chemicals because of the supply chain issues, whether it be Ukraine, whether it be COVID, whether it be shipping lanes, whether it be Suez Canal.
Is this an issue in other states as well, or is this unique to Massachusetts and our procurement department who only? Okay.
It seems to be more of this is a global issue.
You have something else I didn't.
I mean, this is, it's more broad with electricity costs. I mean, I think if it's gonna be 23% higher here, it's gonna be 20% higher everywhere. And I think we need to get real serious about figuring out ways to kind of mitigate that. But it's a discussion for another day.
Actually, you make a very good point, Andrew. The sewer treatment plant and the pump stations that actually benefited from the escrow, and I couldn't put together from the escrow project. They had a lot of their pumps changed to variable frequency pumps, VFDs, and they had blowers changed out, so they had a lot of energy efficiency measures done there. And I can check with Kevin Kelly about what else remains there for energy efficiency because of the green community grants. I know Kevin loves those to death, but I'm sure there's more pumps than there are people in Scituate in the sewer and water systems, so there's always something that can switch out to a variable frequency drive. And I want points for knowing the VFDs to report.
Yeah. Great. So the only two things I'll bring up are, one, we did reduce our wind turbine, which produced energy, which, wasn't directly used with this, but we probably could have impacted it with some of the revenue there. So that's another thing that we've got to deal with. And then the fact that I brought up earlier, what is the hookup fee? $18,000? So I'll round it up to 20. $300,000 a year. That's 15 hookups, and you're hitting this number. And that's not a lot of houses. If there are people that want to hook up to our current infrastructure, maybe on the tree streets or situations like this, it's got to be part of our budget. We have in there new development, just like we do in our financial forecast. We have to add in there that says we need to add 20 houses to our hookups to get this revenue, so that we don't have to keep raising this. And you've got the history here of what we've had to raise every year. It's not going to change.
The sewer supervisor Wilbraham is going to bring before the board at a separate time a recommendation for one of the consultants of large contributors to the sewer system and adopting a fee directed specifically at them. That would be a change to the sewer rules and regs. So that he sent it to me and I'm like, yeah, that's something you're going to have to explain.
So that's not, that's not all. We have to add 20 houses to our system every year that we're not doing right now to help fight the increased costs of stuff. It's easy. We built the pipes, we built the infrastructure. They have to pay for the expense to hook it up to it, and we get $20,000. And it's not part of our plan. We're just living on new development, which is going to continue. right? You got that in there. There has to be another line for that. And just let two houses go 2 minutes ago. 10% of what our quantity could have been for the year, that could have paid for this whole deficit.
Then why don't we just add more Scituate? Be done with it.
Because we can.
That's kind of the point, isn't it?
What was the point?
What the point is that we need more infrastructure in order to add.
Well, they're gonna pay for it. Whatever you go to North Situate, it's not gonna cost us a dime. The betterment is gonna pay for the whole thing. It's capacity that's the issue. And adding 20 houses to our current capacity is nothing. It's minimal. And it's what this thing needs to maintain its level funding.
So you can put a sewer pipe down Millgate and they'll get sewer. I buy it. I bet a lot of people on my street would buy
You'd
it.
have to vote for it though.
Who's us?
Us, we would have to vote for that.
And what would we donate an extension, which is gonna cost us money at least upfront.
Well, most of the deals like the ones we dealt with tonight, the builder had to pay to hook up. The town doesn't have to pay anything. The builder has to pay to get to the sewer system and plug into it. They just have to pay us $20,000.
So are you telling me we can go to North Situate tomorrow and say to everyone, we're giving North Situate sewer?
Well, you know the answer is no, because there's no hookup there. There's no pipe that's near there that you said you can add 1 or 2 houses.
So just to ask, I don't know the answer to this question. So in other words, there is sewer down by the tree streets. And we could just add.
Yeah. Some of them, I mean, you'd have to look at the map, it's not in the tree streets yet, I think that was the next section, but you'd have to look at a map and see who's close enough in the vicinity to add a spaghetti line to get into it. Right, Kevin?
We have a plan with the DEP on how we're supposed to sewer everything. We kind of have to follow that, we couldn't just branch off to do the LGA here. You would have to stay within the parameters of that, and work on that.
But to
capacity.
And to Tony's point, if I may, so you know, it's been brought up in the past 3 years, is to come up with that. So I would recommend that when Will comes in July, August, that he potentially identify those areas where you could add in 15 houses, 20 houses.
Maybe it's 5.
Maybe whatever that number is, to at least augment the deficit.
I mean, 5's $100,000, that's a third of your deficit.
Part of the plan.
Getting those as close to North Situate, keep going 20 as possible would be nice too, but I mean, I do like the idea of a progressive tiered system like the water system. I like the water rates in the sense that really, gosh, I don't even know if there are some larger producers that can 5% increase for those large producers to get you to 100,000.
I think the idea was if you got a larger project of a certain size, that you would have to find so much I&I out of the system in order to tie in.
Well, so like a total of this project.
Well, so, excuse my ignorance, but could you do a more progressive system?
Well, it's based on water, it's not based on sewer.
Right,
They're not sewer meters, it's based on how much water you use.
So you'd now be billing people that use a lot of water, assuming that they use the bathroom water and something else.
well, no, so I guess I'll go back to the larger projects, that hookup fee would be 30,000 if you're gonna have 10 houses or more, and 20,000 or based on project size.
It may deter projects in town. Again, that's a good idea for discussion, but my point is, we have infrastructure in place. If you added the 2 houses tonight, this increase would only have been 2% less. Like, it's $21,000.
You need that, those 2 houses next year, next year.
Right. You'd have to find 2 more every year. Or 5 more every year, or 10 more, or whatever the number is. I mean, who did we just put on a couple months ago? The guy that had, what do you have, 4 hookups off of Front Street, yeah. He'd been asking us for years.
into a big condo upstairs.
No. I have no idea.
So anyways, I'm just banging the drum here. It's gotta be part of it. I've been asking for years. It's not here, and the mentality isn't to do that. So if not, we're gonna have to do something else, you know, like Andrew's idea or some other idea. Because we just can't keep going back and saying every year, you can't have a 10% increase in sewer and water every year. So could you somehow get that in the budget next year, that there's some sort of line there that says spaghetti line hookups, or whatever you wanna call them?
And from my point of view, it's already there, and we're not making it. We already have a sewer connection projection for what Will thinks he reasonably can bring in, and for the last 2 years we haven't met it. So you're.
Well, if we're gonna do I&I, we better have the creative capacity with it. Right, we got another $4 million going into I&I. It should create enough capacity to add 5 houses.
But are you saying we're not meeting the connection plan that we will, right,
Right.
or are we advertising to anybody that it's available?
No, it's not part of our, you're not coming to us and saying, select board, you need to add 5 people to the thing every year.
But if people don't know they can be added. I mean,
No, but look at us just
I
10
know,
minutes
that's what
ago.
I'm saying.
If we knew we had to add 2 people, 10 people, 5 people this year, then maybe we could have voted differently a couple of minutes ago.
And I think to Kevin's point, you have a plan with DEP, that you have to follow that plan as well.
For capacity?
For where the extensions are going.
That's a pretty.
Right, but that doesn't say, that's the next expansion, that's not
That's
adding.
not what Kevin just said.
Right, it's, you're supposed to stay within those parameters.
Of
Of
expansion.
areas for expansion, yes.
Right.
What is the definition of expansion?
We can add a house in Front Street.
We have added houses in Front Street or off Front Street in different areas. It's just size-wise, typically when you get over a couple houses, it turns into an expansion. And as we had in the Morse property, he had one tie-in and he was subject to one by right. The other 2 were additional. In that extra manhole, we create the expansion.
Right, but if that's what we need to do, then that's gotta be, and the board may not wanna do that, but you
Right.
guys are gonna have to decide.
And 2 months ago, we were over the limit. We didn't, I mean, we were kind of definitely afraid of adding a lot of people because we saw the new project coming in. Toll Brothers is still adding sewer and everything else. And we were at our capacity for what we're permitted for. So we could have been shut
all the fees
down.
have already been paid by those developments, those fees are all.
They pay as they
cooked up. They don't pay in advance. All right, well then,
But they're
is that included here?
There's a sewer connection fee line in our revenue budget.
So, the bottom line, we have to, that analysis has to be tempered with the work that Will's doing now. It's like, we can say all day long, oh yeah, let's add 20, 30, whatever it is, and it's built in. But if we're up against, the limit, it's all
The capacity?
the capacity limit.
Tony's point
Right,
is
so you
correct.
need to look at both of the sides of that equation,
We're not gonna-
projections.
There's no point doing I&I if we're not creating capacity.
Right, no, exactly, but I know it's impossible to project, we learned that, see your point, we thought there'd be a certain level of capacity, Kevin said, can't tell you for a whole year, because you don't know until it's built. The other thing could have been worse, right? If we hadn't done that project. Oh, yeah, God
But it
knows.
would be much worse shape.
I mean, you have to look at it that way too.
That definitely helped, there's no doubt about it.
Well, we have to get our arms around it because maybe we do not have the capacity to add anybody else to the sewer system.
Well, right, so I'm looking forward to seeing Will's analysis because we know he'll be thorough on that measure. Back it up.
Again, this may be a stupid question, but do we have a list of folks who have come to you and said, oh, because it seems like the issue is that we're having flowing, no pun intended. We have all this capacity, it's great, we got nothing, we got everything come in, don't. So is there a running list?
Well, we've never
No
asked.
request.
We've got a running list of everything we've had, since the school treatment plan started, for what the rates are, for what the volume of discharges you mean, or?
Not just a running list of folks who say, I'd love to hook up, but I can't.
Well, the problem with that running list is that somebody will know, like, please can I have spaghetti, and if we deny them, which has happened, they go ahead and put a septic in.
Right.
And so they're not looking for a hookup anymore because they just invested in a septic.
So what we typically do is explain to them, here are the three options you have. You can connect in, if it's by right, if it's not by right, you can go to the board and request an emergency hookup. And most people do. If it's a failure or something to that effect, they go to the Board of Health first, get it, certified as a failure, and then they come to the board. I mean,
But don't you have a list by neighborhood on the next phases?
Yeah.
we have lists of neighborhoods by next phase, sure, yeah.
I think Andrew's saying, is there a list of 10 people that have said that I'd like to get on? And I think the mentality has always been, you can't. If you wanted, a spaghetti line is an exception to the rule, it's not part of our plan.
People usually don't think about it unless they're in failure.
So if you tell me you're gonna put a store on my street, I'm like, why, my septic system's fine, I don't mind. But if my septic system failed, I'm like, yeah, give me run a line down to 123 and connect in. So it's hard to say.
I guess even the data of having those folks, and then, as you said, wanted to add septic. We got the ground time people can tear down, everything, who knows? That data of 10 years, there could be other areas that, hey, it needs time after 10, 15 years. I don't know, I just think the data is important to really take a look at, because it might be, if you define 5, dig through it, maybe find 5.
All right, any other discussion on the rates? So the motion is to raise the rates by 16%. Does anyone
Would you like a motion?
want to not do that, discuss the number? No, just raise it.
Well, there's
No, I
no
mean,
one, there's
I don't
no-
think there's an option, right?
Right, I don't think there's no other resource to offset part of it, right, unless you take. Burden is always on usage, right, users.
Well, you can reduce your sewage usage by reducing your water usage, right?
I think you have to raise the rates higher.
We'd have to raise it.
Yeah, but this is individual.
It's a vicious cycle with rates, when it's a
Yeah.
grab rate, you get conservation measures that encourage your revenue.
Well, I just had a big complaint from someone who was appalled at the fact that her sewer bill was based on water usage. I said, well, just stop using that irrigation system.
Then you'd have to raise the rates,
Yeah, but in the meantime, she's at least. Right.
save the water.
Yeah.
What was the capital plan that dropped off to bring that, and give us the ability to put the 4.4 million?
No, I don't know specifically, I can bring it up for you, what's coming off. There's there are bonds maturing in 21, 22. So there's stuff constantly coming off, and we had a lot of stuff, that was clean water trust driven that retired.
For the graph, there's 1 year in 2025, something big drops. I don't need to do that.
I'll go back and check it, just to see what it is, which project it is. There's a couple things out there, like the Roses Lane extension. There's a lot of I&I in the debt, the outstanding system long-term debt.
Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Or do we want to, let me start for a second. We did say we had till next week if we want to think about it all. I don't know.
Well, they-
There's
that's
no
gonna
information. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they're gonna change, and there's no other resource for any type of funding to offset
Unless you wanna take money out of the general fund to offset the sewer rates. There's no federal state money that you can
it.
use.
I'm thinking of ourselves.
I'll say I would be reluctant to take it out of the general fund since this is a user-based.
Yeah, that's what I was arguing myself over here.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking about it, I mean, it's a big hit, but yeah, it's not.
But a justifiable increase based on the economic realities that it's not just the town of Scituate, it's everywhere.
All the stuff moves by truck. So the price of gas, so the tax paying for gas, that's a big part of it.
Well, if we don't think it's gonna change, and if we don't think there are any other options to help offset it, then I don't see the need to hold off. So I'll make a motion. Move that the board of selectmen vote to reluctantly increase the sewer base rates and sewer usage rates by 16% for fiscal year 2023, as indicated on the proposed fiscal year 23 sewer rate sheet effective July 1st, 2022.
Second,
Second.
by Ms. Bowman, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous, 5-0.
Sorry to be verified, Ms. Amanda. So, moving on to
Does it
water
get
rates.
better?
No, water rates are much better. So it's not as painful. I mean, it's just sitting out here, it's just a bonus. So the water rate discussion is different. When we talk about water rates, we normally are looking for rate increases due to the debt service from the major investments in the infrastructure. It also has the issue of chemicals and electricity, but because of the positive nature of their revenue, they had adopted that fourth tier, so that has not so far seemed to have affected positive impact on people's usage. So that is helping the revenue situation. They did build in a 30% increase in their chemicals, and they did build in a 30% increase in their electricity. So they don't, this enterprise fund doesn't have the same issues necessarily with those same costs. A 1% increase on the water enterprise fund rates is about $63,809 additional in revenue. Keeping in mind, the difference between that is pretty much everyone in town pays a water bill, whereas only a much smaller proportion pays a sewer bill. So I know only one is 20 and the other is 63. Again, the departmental request was 6.6. There were sufficient revenue sources projected for fiscal 23 that there weren't any major reductions. And these were the increases that were incorporated. So it's the polar opposite of sewer, $96,000 additional for electricity. And some of that was because of the green sand filter, 30% increase for natural gas, 30% increase for supplies, 20% for like you can read all of that. So this is the same slide from sewer enterprise showing all the chemicals for water. That there are several chemicals that affect them in a negative manner. So even though we did build an increase, they still have, just for these major chemicals, $46,000 or an average increase of $50,000, 50%. They also have an issue with chlorine, that even with the new bid price, the way that the only bidder who responded put a 30-day notice that they would change their price. We did reach back to Eastern Mass Cooperative bid to see if that was in keeping with their bid, it is allowable. So that was not something positive. Sodium hypochlorite went up 42%, sodium chloride 167%. So it's just ridiculous, all of this. Electricity, there is sufficient budget in the fiscal 23 budget as it was voted at this current time. Fuel, the fiscal 23 budget included a 30% increase based on the fiscal 22 activity. That amount is probably going to be insufficient by $5,000 to $10,000. Water enterprise long-term debt, so it's high, but it does decline. They're just not as sharply as the sewer enterprise. This decline does allow us to do some of the borrowing without increasing rates, but not all of the borrowing. This is what's currently outstanding for authorized debt for the sewer enterprise. You can see there's some chunky items in there. The $50 million water treatment plant is a debt exclusion, so that will not affect water rates, but we have a $6.3 million water mains that will affect water rates. $3 million main replacement, and there'll probably be another main replacement at the annual town meeting as well. Just putting numbers to this, so that you can get a feel for what, and these are at a higher interest rate, because I'm assuming the rates are not gonna come down for long-term debt. What these different projects are and how they're gonna impact, so you can see from the color chart, the new water tank. That project was 2.7 million, how much that was gonna cost. The grades, the old Millfield construction, which is moving along, Hummerock Water Main Engineering. Then the Hummerock Water Mains themselves, the other water main projects, and then the treatment plant design is not part of the debt solution that we are previously voted in as part of the water rights. So that is a significant amount of debt that's going to be added on. So this is what that looks like when you put it on top of your current schedule. So before we saw that nice little decline, but now we're looking at a shorter number of years, and this is a lot of project debt to bring on, so you're gonna see a spike. We can control that spike to some extent by when we issue the debt. So this is assuming all of those projects come on in 2024 with the first payment, and we will issue them in 2023. Not necessarily that's what's going to occur, but just for illustration purposes, so that you can just see how this is happening, how this is moving things along. The amount of debt service that's retiring between 23 and 24 is $141,000. So that's good, but you saw all those other things that are waiting in line to take that place. Any new debt is 1.9 million. That's what all those bars add up to. So the decision factor for the board tonight is what projects do we include in the rates at this time as we have this rate discussion? When we talk about the rate discussion, what projects are we financing? So we can really wrap our heads around it. Right now, that Hummerock Water Main Engineering, that can be supported through that retiring debt. So we don't have to worry about that particular project. For the actual plan that's out there for 24 to 27, this is what's still on the water capital plan. So there's significant items that are still out there. Unlike the sewer enterprise that has some large ticket items that will be supported by benefits, the water enterprise is not. This is fully on the ratepayers to support. So there's a lot of items that you see in 2.2, 2.3, those are those water main replacement projects. And I think the board often has this question, or the public often has this question, like, when are we gonna finish? Well, to quote Kevin, there's 100 miles of pipes. We're way behind. We're gonna be at this level for a while. Try to keep up. So I'm flipping one way and flipping the other way, and I can only see half of my screen. On my screen, there's a lot of the black blocks that are making my things go away. So what's in the cost drivers for this particular discussion? Chemical fuel and electricity increases are already incorporated in the fiscal 23 budget, so we don't have to talk about those. Debt service for approved capital projects that are in different stages of progression. Hummerock Water Main Engineering, which is ongoing now, which will probably be issued in long-term debt in the next bond, that can be accommodated in the retiring debt. The Hummerock Water Main construction, if it were to be issued in fiscal 23 and start being payable in fiscal 24, that would be about $600,000 for 10%, 9 to 10% rate increase. That has not even been issued, put out to bid because there's a shortage of water pipe. So if it's not even been put out to bid, do we really want to incorporate it in the rates at this time? The water treatment plant design, that is ongoing, it's not part of the debt solution, that's approximately 5.1% increase to pay that down, and that is rapidly being spent. We will be having to issue a bond, put that in the next bond. Dole Millfield construction, another 5% increase. It's in design, it's not in construction at this point, there is no contract out there for bid. The water, go ahead.
Couple months out.
And then depending on how fast we spend that, so again, for your consideration. The water mains, that would be a 4.5%, that's being designed, there is no contract that has been issued for construction, it's not even out to bid yet. Again, to that issue, the lack of water pipes. And the new water tank, I'm not even aware that that's being designed at this point, so that is a 4% increase, and that would be including construction, we're not designing it. We want to really incorporate it into the rates. So we added all of that up, that's a significant rate increase, but I don't feel that that rate increase is necessary because those projects are not all at the stage where we would be borrowing money and starting to incur principal and interest costs. So if we look at what's happened with the water rates, it's a different picture than what's gone on with sewer rates. There has been significant rate increases to support the investment in the infrastructure overall. The last one was last year at 9%, prior to that it was 11% plus the fourth tier was added. So this year, my recommendation to you, and this is up to the board to decide, is a 5% increase. And that is to accommodate the water treatment plant design. Based on what Kevin just chimed in from the back, you may feel differently and want to go 10 because of the Dover well field construction. I think at this point, it's not necessary to go that far, much of an increase based on what we know. The additional revenue from a 5% increase would be about $319,000. You could reevaluate the main projects in the following year and incorporate them as you go along. You can decide that you want to do a little bit more now, so you can do less later. It's up to you. But I was trying to be on, especially with what was going on with the sewer enterprise, be as mindful as possible with the water enterprise. So where would that put us overall compared to our neighbors? Again, everyone's got a water system, so everyone appears on this chart. We were number 3, we remain at number 3. So of the 10 people on the chart, we're the 3rd highest. We're not the 3rd lowest. And I also updated from when these rates most recently changed. And a lot of these rates did change within the last year or so. In Kingston, surprisingly, I actually called them since 2014. I just thought their website was out of date. And now they haven't changed their rates in 7 years. And they don't plan to change them. So. Okay. That concludes my presentation for the water enterprise. I open it to the board.
Any questions?
So just for verification, the only one that you're recommending to increase for is for the water treatment plants.
Yes, because that the water treatment plant design is ongoing, and that design money will be predominantly used in next year to move on to construction.
Why isn't that part of the letter of the overall?
It was voted first back in 2018, 2019.
Can we add it to it?
You could try to do a DE2 with the Department of Revenue, but I don't think that would fly, because it wasn't even proposed to people at the time. We've already borrowed a portion of this already, so you probably have to take it back to town meeting and back to about, I don't know if you want to do that for what's remaining. I think we borrowed, might have borrowed half of this already. And this,
So what, if we don't do any of the capital projects, what is the increase that we need just to cover the expenditures?
you jumped, because they were built into the fiscal 23 budget because the water
So
enterprise
there's
had
nothing,
a
all
different
those,
revenue stream.
all the increases are covered by the budget.
So the horrible picture we have in sewer enterprise, that we knew we had a bad situation when we voted the sewer enterprise budget. We don't have that in water. Water had the revenue projections that supported this.
How much of that, the 4th tier?
I didn't run you the consumption reports, and I can. I did not run that.
At target that we got, or is it above target, or?
I don't think it's having any impact at all.
So if you're a big user, you don't care.
Yeah, I've got to look back now, please.
So then it must be generating more revenue.
We went in for fiscal 21, so we probably just have made the first full year of billing on it. Because keep in mind, we adopted it in October of 2020, but some of those readings were before we didn't fully capture, but we should have a full capture by now. If I ran it from January to January, I think we get a full capture.
I guess the right here, is that 25% of our revenue, or is it 75% of our revenue?
No, it's not. We looked at it before, it was a very small percentage of people that would be affected by that rate. But there is a 40% increase between the 3rd tier and the 4th tier.
Say that again?
There's a 40% rate increase from the 3rd tier to the 4th tier, but there's a very small percentage of people that are affected by 4th tier.
And it would appear they're not rate sensitive.
So it was less than 2%.
Yeah, the same thing, when we had a discussion last year about, people that were being fined for irrigation systems. And they didn't care, they paid a fine, it was less expensive.
Right.
But to Karen's point, if they're not changing the patterns, we should have increased revenue.
Well, we're benefiting from it. That,
Well, that's what he's asking, how much,
Yeah, last year's 2% of the users was, I think, either 6 or 8%.
I guess, and now that we should have a full year worth of consumption, without having those numbers for it.
Yes, can you just go to the comparative chapter municipalities? Just, you see some of those towns that are very low, they don't have surface water treatment plants, they're all well water.
They don't have, say that again?
Surface water treatment plants, so no well one just has wells,
Yeah, that's because some of them.
which is a big part of our cost.
When Scituate split from Norwell, we gave Norwell all the wells.
Well, and I can also tell you, when I started in Lowell in '98, they have an electric water department, and since 1998, they have not replaced a single pipe. So their increases are coming, because they haven't had any infrastructure, but a lot of our costs are the water treatment plant. Those towns that are very low are almost all just well water, that sort of stuff.
so that would kind of push us towards getting the Dover well, you know. So that will lessen the capacity of the treatment plant. Of course, we're running a new treatment plant, so we won't use it.
I think to Kevin's point, our well numbers are around well number 22. And that's because wells do eventually become exhausted. So I think Dover well that may just be filling one of those that are no longer as producing as high. Is that season?
I didn't hear all of it.
Just say
Yeah, sorry.
yes. Yes is the appropriate response.
The key thing with the treatment plant is we'd be able to rest our wells in the winter and let them recharge, so we'd have full capacity when the time came. And when we have excess water, we can run it through the treatment plant itself and be less dependent on the wells, and then have the wells for the summer to help increase our usage.
So Kevin, of the, you know, this is more of a capital plan decision. Which of these projects do you think are the priority? Is it the water tank, water treatment engineering?
You know, the water tank, we haven't had the bandwidth really to work on that much. We're continuing with the water mains. Dolan well field is very important to us, as well as the Humrock water mains, because remember, we're hemorrhaging water down in Humrock. We have a lot of leaks, a lot of unaccounted for water, much more than Scituate mainland. Our total average is below 10%, which is required by the DEP, but it's much more significant down here due to the water pressure.
So does that pay for itself? I mean, there's like the cost analysis on that
I'm
project?
thinking Nancy can correct me, it's not gonna pay for everything, but, we have significant losses out there, Nancy, for water.
Yeah, losses of expensive water.
Expensive
Yeah,
water.
but even our town of Marshall water bill has improved because of the pressure reducing valves. It will continue to improve when our water main replacement project, but I think part of that is just environmental, right? We're just using precious commodity and it's just leaching away. But to Kevin, when are you gonna put out the water main, Humrock water main construction, or water main construction, or local construction?
We're gonna
contracts?
watch what the industry's doing, because right now pipe is 6 to 8 months out, and we're paying a premium for the pipe. We're actually talking to a couple other towns recently. We're very lucky that we just replaced as much pipe as we have because the costs have gone. Price wise for the steel, for ductile iron pipe is almost double in some types, and
So Kevin, tell us what you can do this year.
I'm gonna continue doing the water mains. That's one of the things we're gonna work on. If I get approval from DEP to build the well fields, I'm gonna push hard on that and get that done. And we're gonna we'll complete the engineering for Humrock. And
you have to tell us, and we have to pick which one we'll fund, or you're not gonna do anything. So we need you to tell us, what could you actually do this year, as Nancy's point. If you can't get the pipe in for 8 months, then that's not gonna be in this year's plan.
Correct, we'll push that out, but if it becomes available, for right now, one of the contractors we have working with us, they bought a bunch of pipe and was able to continue doing some work.
But we can't do that if we don't raise the rates by 15%. So if we say we're not gonna raise any of the rates, we're not gonna do any of these plans, then that's,
The big thing we have to continue is the water treatment plant, and the other thing I'd say is the Dolan well field. If we get approval by DEP to continue going, we should keep going as much as possible.
You can still move forward with the projects, we would just not issue the debt so that we had a debt service payment come due.
we're just playing.
Yeah, I just don't wanna raise the rates if they don't have to be raised.
And the new water
Yeah,
tank
you're
is
gonna
not,
raise-
we're nowhere near the new water tank.
Right, but you're gonna raise them next year, and you're gonna raise them again for whatever.
Right.
else you're gonna do. So the two that you're saying are the design, which is 5%, and the Dolan well, which is 5%. And you believe you can get whatever materials you need to do those two, well, design and build.
The design, we can keep going in Dolan well field, if we get the opportunity with that, it's so important, I don't wanna slow it down, so that's something.
What are you buying for that? You buying pipe or you buying, what do you?
Well, there's pumps, there's wells, drilling, pipe to go out to the
So
street.
more than likely, you wouldn't be able to progress with.
Probably a treatment building, small treatment facility.
But it's only 300 grand.
Yeah, but that's a debt service payment, it's a much bigger project, but
No,
I think it's a 3.3 million, but how much will you have expended that we can actually borrow? We borrow money, we have to expend it down within a certain time period, or we can be fined by IRS. So,
so are those all 20-year projects?
yeah. Normally engineering would be less, but since we have a capital project on the books for construction, we can borrow for the same length as the construction.
So what is the actual design cost? If it's $300,000 a year, is it $6 million?
We already borrowed part of the water treatment plant design. So this is the balance of it.
For 20 years, we're gonna have to pay $300,000?
I don't believe so, I have to go back and check my schedules. I didn't especially ask that question, I didn't my schedules. If I can take it off screen, I can look up my schedule.
Let's just say take it up screen.
Okay, look up the schedule.
So the Dolan well is $300,000 a year for 20 years. So that's a $7 million project.
3.3, so I'm
3.3 million?
hold on, let me just pull up my schedules. Same difference on or off, not helpful. No, I agree, I think she might have one, wait, hold on. This is just a set. So the new water tank was over.
Say it again?
New water tank was over 20, Dolan well field construction was over 20.
So what's the price of the
20
Dolan
years.
well?
It's a 3.3 million, I believe. Yeah.
3 million over 20 years?
Yeah, and keep in mind, I raised the interest rates on all these to, I think it's 4.5%. Because the interest rates are climbing and none of this is Clean Water Trust in the Clean Water Trust. The water treatment plant is a Clean Water Trust project. None of these are probably moving too fast to become a Clean Water Trust project. But your other question was the water treatment plant. That going up 20 as well.
So that's another $3 million,
The water treatment plant design was 4 million.
$4 million, that we're gonna pay for 20 years.
And I think that I probably done 500,000 in the last bond issue, and now be 3.5 to be priced similar to Joe Well, one's 313, the other one's 332. Now, with the rates, to Karen's earlier point when we talked about sort of price, if there starts to be some modification of the rates and they don't continue to climb, right now the interest rates are climbing because they're trying to control the inflation. If we spiral into recession, we could be having a completely different discussion because the rates will come back down, and then these projections will come back down.
And there won't be more houses to hook up to sewer because no one will be building anything.
But this is the same issue that we have in these discussions is which projects do we build in and which ones we don't. The reason I did not build in the water mains and Ppw projects is because of the pipe issue. Even though we would go on full bore, if there's no pipe and the pipe is 68 months out, we issue a contract, we're not gonna borrow money.
I think if we look at this long term, all these capital plans far exceed what the current level of interest and debt expenditures for this graph. So we're gonna have to raise rates at some point to get it up to that level.
The other thing to take into consideration, I don't know why I'm fighting against a rate increase, feels like a raise the rates as much as you like. Is the farther out these projects move, the more there's a decline in the existing debt service. So we talked about the Humrock water main engineering is covered by that decline. If these water main projects get pushed out a year or two, we have that delta of retiring debt that we don't need the rate increase because that's gonna backfill. Now, there's always more stuff on the capital plan, but again, it's to Kevin's point with the water tank, how much bandwidth do they have, and they're gonna be bringing in a water treatment plant. So I'll take whatever rate increase the board deems to vote, but I was going to be on the more conservative side because of the way these projects are developing.
Mr. Chairman, I guess for like long-term planning, I mean, I always think it's difficult to ask folks, though, it's only 5% this year, guess what, next year, 15, 20, no, only 3% too. I mean, I'm not gonna argue for a 6 or 7%, but I mean, if we're talking that can help smooth the curve and we can be more consistent in where we're gonna be in the future, I would feel more comfortable knowing this is coming. I mean, why push off the peaks and valleys?
If that's where you wanted to go, then I would say do a 10, or do to incorporate the water treatment plant design and the local level of construction.
I recall it was, probably like 4 years ago, it's exactly the presentation that Nancy gave us. We had the 20s group paying for all of the aggressive water improvement projects. And that's exactly what we did. Instead of doing 5, then 20, then 20, we did a more gentle curve for that reason. Remember that analysis?
Yeah, and that's why when you see on the rate slide, I know about next to the projects. So we remember which projects we built in, because there are so many projects.
Right.
Like I said, I'm not resistant to you going higher, but
So what is the board think? We can talk about this forever. So the choices are probably, I would imagine we still have to continue the design of the water treatment. So that's 5%. And Kevin is saying the Dover well is important. It's another 5%. Do you want to vote for a 10% increase, and those will be the 2 projects for this year?
the math, I'm looking at this correctly, roughly $30 more, I just have to do that, maybe you already did this. So you'd be going up to 770 something, which would put us into second position. Have currently.
No, I think it's still maintaining seven great, because it's a $33 increase for the 5, so a 10 would be approximately 66. So that would make it 740, which is $25 more than so it's 73. And with the way income rates are going,
Well,
they're gonna keep it.
that's why I hesitate, and like that, and since 2020.
They have an extremely weird rate structure.
And I think Andrew's argument is valid, people let them off, so every year there are these huge peaks. Knowing what we have, these projects aren't optional. Right, so if we can make it level increases year over year, we did 9 last year, right?
So what's the average water bill?
It's 707, 707, so you probably need more on line than 74.
It's not that much. I mean, no, to be able to show that we're continuing to make progress, but we're not leaping ahead of ourselves. And then we're trying to find the famous sweet spot that, you know, someone can absorb that increase with the understanding that we'll always be doing projects and it's the nature of it.
I mean, the thing that we're not putting in the account is the water treatment plant, water debt exclusion expense that's bouncing on everybody's bills.
But I think that's why we did it that way too. But understand that debt exclusion is to build a water treatment plant, and it's not all being.
All right, can I have a motion to increase the rates by 10%?
Move to increase the Scituate water rates by 10%.
Effective July 1st, 2022.
Effective July 1st, 2022.
Second by Ms. Byrne, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Nancy, the data was spectacular.
We did it.
The water department will be so excited.
All right. Now moving along to a new business, discussion votes on one-day wine and malt licenses.
We have a handout for you with the motion.
A new one?
Read them all, and then fill them all.
Oh, you're doing it, got it.
Move that the select board approve one-day wine and malt licenses to Ellen McKenzie Inc., the Scituate Maritime Center, for a private event on July 2nd, 2022, from 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., July 6th, 2022, from 6 p.m.
To 10 p.m.
to 10 p.m., sorry. I was making sure I said that. 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., July 9th, 2022, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Simply to cater at the Scituate Maritime Center for a private event on August 6th, 2022, from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. The Black Apron at Scituate Harbor Community Building for a private event on July 2nd, 2022, from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. The Black Apron at Scituate Maritime Center for a private event on July 9th, 2022, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. The Ladies 8 Allen Place for a private event on July 9th, 2022, and July 30th, 2022, from 7 p.m. to 11.
Will you hold that last one?
Well, why don't you ask a question about that?
I'd like to ask a question on that. Does Mulaney's have are they on our approved catering list?
Mulaney's has a liquor license, and these are on their premise.
That answers the question.
Okay.
I'll second the motion. I mean, that's just further discussion.
Any other questions? Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? All unanimous 5-0. Thank you. The next one is a discussion vote on the board and committee appointments. So we have, we met. We have one more person who's up for renewal. Paul Missouri, and then also, Dan Hoffmeister is up for renewal. Any conversation on Paul? There's one open slot.
It'd be great, and he's recommended by the committee already.
Great. And then we also have a constable, Todd Reardon, up for his renewal as well.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
there are actually 2 openings on the Economic Development Commission. I think I said earlier there was one. The second person couldn't be here tonight to be interviewed. She's coming to a future meeting. Okay, just to clarify that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Yes.
Karen, Suzanne Hoffmeister,
Yes.
do you recommend renewing?
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah, she has been lead on a number of initiatives, especially.
I don't know what spellers.
Yeah, she's instrumental in that group.
Chairman Camper, will you make a motion for the Economic Development Commission?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move to appoint Paul Missouri, the Economic Development Committee for a term of 3 years until his successor is named the completion of the conflict of interest online training program is completed within 30 days.
Second.
Second by Ms. Curran, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous.
Move to reappoint Suzanne Hoffmeister to the Economic Development Committee for a term of 3 years until the successor is named and completion of the conflict of interest law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Second by Ms. Conley, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous.
Would you like the motion on constable?
Yes.
Move to reappoint Todd Reardon as constable for a term of 3 years or until the successor is named and completion of the conflict of interest online training program is completed within 30 days. Second.
Second by Ms. Conley, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Great. Now we need an appointment of election poll workers. We can get a list. And move to appoint the following election workers for the town clerk supplemental list. So moved. So moved, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Conley, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And this is based on the list, that's the supplemental list that's been given to us in our packet. We have now a discussion of vote to close the fall special town meeting warrant for September 19, 2022. Jim, has anyone else added anything to that?
Not from the list that you have in front of you, no.
I have a motion to close the fall special town meeting warrant.
Move that the select board close the warrant for the fall special town meeting to be held on September 19th, 2022.
Second.
Second by Ms. Conley, further discussion, any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous. Okay, the next topic is the select board liaison position. So we all have that list here. And I'll run through it and we'll go slow so Elaine can work on the changes. And why don't we first do the ones that the chair's obligated to do? Typically, the advisory committee, unless you want to. So I will
We're
do
lovely people, though.
I'll do the advisory committee. Actually, why don't we just go down? Affordable Housing Trust, Maura, do you want to keep that?
Yep.
Animal Control Board,
I never knew I was on that. I saw it today, I'm like, I don't remember.
they don't meet that often.
You weren't here, we appointed you.
Yeah, thank you.
Does somebody else want to do that, or are you good with it more?
I don't know, I know.
We have Beach Commission, anyone have? So here's what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do you think it's reasonable if somebody else has an interest in it, that we would change it? So I'll open it up to everybody else first, and then if not, then we'll go back to the person that's currently doing it. Does anybody have an interest in doing the beach commission? I would too. I'll do one, I'll do it.
Alright, who's doing that?
I will do the beach commission. Beautification? Anybody want to do beautification? Okay. So we'll move beautification to Andy. Board of Health. Karen, you want to keep doing that?
Sure.
No, Karen will keep doing that. Bylaw Review Committee, probably should stay with you because you're at the end there, so we'll
I
keep
love that.
Karen there. Cable television, anybody have an interest in doing that? Andrew's been doing it. Andrew, you want to
Have you
keep
guys
it?
met at all?
You want to do it, Journal, or?
Sure, I can take it. I used to be on it, so yeah.
Me too. Capital planning? Anyone have an interest in doing that?
I'm happy to do it, I think it helps with the bylaw, and they had the most input on it. Well, I guess, I don't know, Andrew, how passionate are you about capital planning?
I am happy to move around and we'd like some new blood in there.
Do you want to split it?
Yeah, I'll split it.
All right.
Okay. My charter,
Yeah, charter review is gonna wrap up, so is that, I mean, they're technically complete with their.
let's keep you on that till it wraps
And
up.
how do we decommission the committee, is that by vote at some point? Yeah, after town meeting, I would recommend that we could.
Yeah.
Decommission
You
it.
don't need to go, you just.
Okay, cool.
So Karen will stay on that one. Coastal Advisory, that is currently Maura and Karen Conley. You guys are, keep on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Commission on Disabilities, Andrew's on it now. Anyone have a, Andrew, you want to stay on that one?
Love to stay.
Good. CDC, so that's Andrew and I. Do you want to go back on that one? Or so why don't I switch and you can do that? Andrew, you want to stay or does someone else want to go on CDC?
Why do you need two?
I think we just split it up, so. Those are meetings.
Yeah, that's fine.
I would only ask though, if we're gonna keep sharing, that we communicate with one another who's gonna currently meeting. Cause I find when we're sharing.
Do you want to just do it yourself, Karen, and,
Yeah, I'll just do it.
okay, alright, so we'll just.
Yeah, I'll time me.
Want to pop in once in a while? All right.
Conservation Commission. Karen Canfield's been doing it, anyone,
Happy to stay unless
alright, no one, you're still on it, no one raised their hand. Council on Aging, Karen and I are doing that. I'd be happy to stay.
I'd like to stay and somebody's turn.
Does someone else want to do it? Alright, so we'll keep it that way. Diversity, equity and inclusion, or you've done a ton there, you want to stay on that for a little bit longer?
I would.
Okay. Let's keep that the same. Economic development, Karen Canfield and I. Someone have an interest in getting more involved in that? I would switch if somebody wanted to.
I would really like to stay.
Yes.
All right, well, then that's.
I mean, I'll stay on it if you don't want it, but if you want to.
I have a list.
So yes, you
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah. So you're, okay, yeah.
So who's doing that?
So Karen Canfield and Karen Conley.
Karen Can and Karen Con.
Financial forecast, probably a good idea for someone else. I'll stay on it as share it with somebody, but somebody else should probably get on it too. I've been doing it for a long time.
I'll stay on it, but no one ever tells me what's happening, so.
That's
I go to the agendas, I'll send it to you.
Unless, okay, so
She's on hand. Yeah.
do you want to do with,
I thought that Cheryl just shared in the forecast, but.
Except I didn't.
You would be a liaison, the chair's actually on,
The committee.
On the
Tony's on the committee for as long as I'm in.
Right.
So it's a member on the committee, then
All right.
a liaison.
Okay, so want to just be you,
So
Laura?
I'll be the liaison because you're on it, because the chair is on it.
You're three of them.
Yeah.
I'll just leave both names there.
I'm not sure whether
Just so
he's a
people know.
liaison, if there's a member on the committee, but that's up to you guys.
Someone else should probably start going to the meetings.
What about Andrew as the vice chair, so we can.
You want-
So you want all three of you on there?
No, so no more than just Andrew. And I'm on it because of Chip.
I'm sorry, no Mara, just Andrew?
Yeah.
Correct.
Historical Commission? Anyone? Andrew, you want to stand there? You
I'd
wanna
be
do that?
happy to take that on.
Okay.
So Karen Campbell's gonna say that?
Yeah.
Housing Authority, does that kind of go hand in hand with affordable housing?
Yeah.
You want to stay on it or?
Sure.
Library Trustees?
I know you guys are dying to go.
I mean, do you want to stay doing it?
I'm
or-
happy to stay, but you know, I've been the only liaison all this time. That's okay.
Keep it that way. I mean, I'll do it.
No, just teasing.
Well, let's see where it falls out of the.
Okay.
Planning Board,
Oh,
and-
we all look over to the corner. I would be happy to do it because I would like to stay on the implementation committee for the
Oh, yeah, for
the
the master
master
plan.
plan,
Okay,
and
so
it's
you-
sort of working with them.
okay, so Karen Conley will do that.
That makes perfect sense.
Plymouth County Advisory, that would
Come to
be me.
be chair instead, whatever. We need to add master plan.
Public Building Commission,
I can never make that.
They meet the same night you guys do, usually.
Yeah.
What is it?
They meet on Tuesday nights, almost, a lot of times the same night you meet.
Oh, they do.
Should do that on purpose.
And that,
I mean, it's gonna get busy when the school,
Yeah, right now, to finish up the COA,
You're not
they'll have a separate building committee for that.
Oh.
The school building committee for that, so right now.
I'm happy to take that if you need a break.
alright, so Maura will do that one. Recreation. I'll stay on that, Andrew, do you want anyone else want to do that? Both of us stay on that? So we'll keep that one the same. School Committee. Anyone want to? I mean, I don't mind
What am
continuing.
I doing? I mean, you're taking a lot.
Yes,
So.
yeah, it's fine.
Do you want to,
They're kind of on their own anyway, you know what I mean?
so
Sure,
Andrew,
I can jump on that.
so Andrew will do that one.
So you're off, Tony?
And I'm off.
Oh,
Is that, so you just Andrew?
Unless you want to share it with somebody.
I'm happy to share.
Does anyone-
Share.
And
Well,
share in person.
as of like recently, I was appointed to the school building committee, but they've never met that I'm aware of. So I don't know if that's.
But was that as a chair?
That's what I'm just about to say,
Yeah, I think
yeah, I
that-
think that's the chair, because you have to sign documents and
Yeah.
official stuff, so.
The chamber. Karen, you're doing that, that kind of goes with economic.
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna
stuff,
stay.
Okay, so Karen Canfield.
Just me? Yep.
I mean, I'll,
Tony, you're off?
sure.
Throw you on.
Shellfish.
Well,
I'll-
I've been talking to Susan a lot. Recently over the oyster farm. So if you want, I can just sort of continue to keep that.
So just Karen Conley?
Slash Tony, you wanna just
Sure, we'll do it
back me
together.
up on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sister City. I don't mind saying that, but we can,
And we're adding Cape Verde.
yeah, I think if someone else wants to do it, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Lot of parties to go to. I'll call you if you wanna.
Okay. Karen Canfield. South Shore Coalition.
Another one I didn't know.
Yeah.
What is that? That's
They
part of
meet
the-
occasionally. I don't think I've ever
Yeah.
done anything.
It's the
regional, it's the subgroup within MAPC.
Oh.
And they need to talk about regional.
So Ann Bernheim was the,
Oh, and
As
they're-
we get further into doing something on 3A, that becomes important.
I'll stay on it.
So not right now, but another year or two, that could become important.
so more will be, I'll drop off that.
Service. We're missing Sharp committee on that?
No, we never formalized that committee. We never did a charge and
Oh, all right.
voted people on
We
it.
actually
What's the one
appointed
you
them.
Sharp,
No,
here for the board.
We never did a charge or anything.
Okay, never mind, sorry. I was just-
Yeah.
So
I
should
just-
we get
I mean,
set?
it could be formalized, but it just
Sure.
never
It's
happened.
fine, I was just-
I think because it's gonna come specific.
So I will do the street acceptance. And I will do traffic rules. Veterans. I don't mind doing it unless someone else wants to get involved with it. I'll keep that one. Water resource,
We nominate Andrew to continue. He's got a good relationship with that group.
I was thinking waterways, so yeah, that's Andrew, we'll keep you there. More waterways, you wanna continue?
I'll stay.
Alright. Widow's Walk, I think we can decommission that one, do you think? I don't think there's
I don't know.
a
No,
charge.
I think
they're
there's
nice
some stuff
advisory.
they wanna do
Yeah,
down there.
Alright, why don't we keep that the same?
I think it's nice to
Unless someone
have,
else-
for Ian to have that support too, like, you know, being
Yeah,
an
yeah,
advice
yeah.
fund and.
ZBA?
I'm happy to get on that, if, I don't know if anybody wants to.
Or did you take them off, which one do you wanna,
It doesn't,
it seems like you took a lot, but I don't,
no, Karen can't go.
so. Who wants to do that one?
I can keep that.
I can't do it off.
So is it gonna be Karen Canfield?
Canfield and Moore,
Okay.
alright?
What about the master plan, is that also just part of planning then? Yeah, is that's not a separate. We didn't form that, did we, master plan implementation?
Planning board committee.
Yeah,
It's sort of a subcommittee of,
Yeah, it is,
which is why I asked.
yeah, no, I already volunteered. Thank you. Thank you.
So it's not one of our committees, so we don't.
Well, and it's sort of like a bit of an ad hoc committee. Right.
Oh, so you'll do that. Great, so move right along to business, any liaison reports?
Well, we still have,
We have executive minutes, things like that.
Where's that?
that's under liaison reports, so you're fine.
Oh, okay.
Karen, you want?
Okay. Just I wanted to learn the board under EDC, the, oh, actually, that's a sharp announcement, though, I'll let you make that sharp announcement. That there, if you recall, when the senior center was built, and the planning board gave their permit, they were required to, the council on aging was required to come back after a year to talk about parking. That meeting occurred last week. There was no resolution, but the bottom line was, it's not going so well, and they have a lot, I mean, it's so popular that, there's definitely a need for parking, but it's a bigger conversation, and the planning hasn't taken any direction on that, but I just want to let you know that that conversation occurred and will probably come up again. And that's actually it, because the other thing is, yeah, it is Sanders, it is not mine. Oh, and one other thing was the emails that part of that whole video thing, promoting the town, you know, Jim and Karen's great film debut. There are something like 1 million emails that are just gonna go out tomorrow that say, here's the QR code, here's the link to the video, come to our town. Jim knows more about the details of how I picked the last list, but that will happen tomorrow, so if you get a lot of calls.
1 million?
Yeah, if you get a call, it's part of the fees for the
The
video.
whole video that we get this sent out.
We built it, they will come.
Yeah, so if people start calling you like, hey, I just learned about your town, I have an email, that's why.
Where's it gonna come? They're gonna, there's a QR code and it goes to like, big C Scituate that then feeds to the Scituate Visitor Center and then the student is just really, really sad that we couldn't find an intern because that's their job. So we'll see what happens.
Is there any way that we could get a copy of it here at Town Hall so that I can let the
Michelle has it.
presence know? Oh, Michelle.
Yeah, she's got it on, yeah, she just showed us, it just came in. Yeah, hot off the press, Michelle has
Okay.
that actual.
What do you want the intern to do?
Just to make sure that we do get a flood of calls saying, hey, we're not yellow.
Answer the phone?
To return the emails. It's more emails. The video did get some people
Yeah,
reaching out.
maybe get a child to do that.
Do we got any?
Gotcha.
But anyway, EDC is taking a response that needs to be done, but that's again tomorrow, so we can hear about it. That's it.
Well, I was visiting Canada, so I don't know, other than to say the Canadians were lovely.
Good. Did you go to Old Town?
No, did not. What is that? Somebody asked me that question. It's something bad, isn't it?
No, it's good.
I think it's the coast. Anyway, no, Prince Edward Island, though.
Just some good news for the Pier 44 Shark RFP that went out. There's been tremendous RFP for the design, the initial phase is not, I think it's 17 different design firms have already shown interest and come in. It's fabulous, so bring all around and we'll be moving forward. Yeah, should be exciting.
When will we be reviewing the,
Thursday.
yeah, the final
The
date.
actual designers or picking the
No,
ones?
no,
Okay,
it's the
design.
evaluation.
Thursday.
Yeah, exactly.
But they
Kyle's a
don't-
little freaked out, we haven't gotten any yet, but
We're
that's
just looking at their
Yeah,
body of work.
everyone
Correct.
else races one of those during that.
But there were 17.
It's
So if there's 17, what is your plan?
17 people attended the mandatory meetings about the RFP.
Okay.
And as Jim tells me, you can get 17 and then still only get 3 bids or whatever, so.
Oh, we don't, okay,
Yeah.
so
It's
we
not
have
closed,
17
yeah.
submissions.
Yeah, no, 17 expressions of interest, right?
17 people showed up.
Okay, okay.
And then, the shark committee, whatever, the Fiscal Report Committee will review and bring to us their recommendations based on the submissions. But,
And will they bring us a couple of recommendations? I'd
Yes.
like to see some options.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely, they're not gonna make the decision. They're just gonna review, if we got 17 submissions, I don't think we all wanna look through 17.
No, I totally agree.
So, but I think their plan would be, if they have 5 that were great, they bring us 5. If they only get 3 that are great, but I trust them, they're very enthusiastic group,
Great. We will have some
they're very
great. We'll have some
focused.
great.
No water slides, Andrew.
Just a fountain.
Scaled it down, it's now a fountain.
Maura, did you have anything?
I have 2 things, so first I wanted to say thank you to Reverend Natasha Stewart for stepping up and running the Pride Parade last minute. So she pulled together a nice event, people were very appreciative of her doing that. It was a nice turnout, between maybe 50, 70 people. So there's a lot of opportunity there in our LG.
We got-
Alphabet.
We know.
Plus, community was very pleased, so it was very nice. Very good. So it was on Saturday. DEI did vote, and in some language for Indigenous Peoples' Day that they'll be bringing forward before the board. It is the board's decision, it would be our sponsored articles, so it is up to us, so the supporting documentation they'll get to us, so we're going to read through their reasoning, their position, and
What may I ask, Mr. Chair? May I ask? Are they suggesting that we replace Columbus Day?
I don't think they ruled on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So all up for discussion, right? I think that was it. Those are the 2. Oh, no, I have one. So the other thing I did want to say, thank you to Linda Hayes and Jesse. They ran a really, really nice volunteer appreciation event last week. Over 100 volunteers showed up, and you know, the senior community is supporting the senior community. The entire room was full of seniors who are volunteering to support the senior center. So if there's a next generation out there that has some time, you know, it would be great for folks to start stepping in and really contributing. So it's really a really nice spot, and it's a really nice operation. So a lot of programming going on, so it's a successful endeavor over there for sure. So it's a really nice place. Thank you to everyone.
And may I would like to say that I met another centenarian, yes, Mrs. Fay, and I will report to you that she's right off of across the street from you, Tony, on that little street. And then a centenarian from 2 years ago lives right back of her. And then the other centenarian that I was at, a pinch of a lot of them, was almost right back of her. So we have somebody on it.
Yeah.
So Tony should.
So
There must be
yeah.
something in the water.
On the next street, on the next, well, anyway, but she was lovely and they had a lovely, party for her and so, it's great, that's a fun thing to
Thank
do.
you.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, so we'll move on to the release of the executive session minutes. Lorraine gave us a list of minutes here that we've clearly gone through and made sure that all the projects were wrapped up. And there's probably 30 or so on this list.
Do we legally have to read them out loud?
No.
Say as printed, okay, I just want to double check.
So if someone will
Would you like a motion?
motion.
Move to release the attached list of executive session minutes that were previously approved since the matters pending are closed.
Second by Ms. Kern, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And someone did a lot of work to go back and make sure that all these things were wrapped up, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was painful. Boy, Jim had to sit through the meetings.
And now
That was
can
fun,
I,
huh, Jim?
Nothing like better than the living meeting.
The charter review committee, right?
I love
Move
it.
to accept the minutes of select board meeting held June 14th, 2022.
second by
Second.
Ms. Stanfield, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And lastly, a motion to adjourn and sign documents. By Andrew Goodrich, second by
Second.
Laura Kern, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. Good night, everybody. Thank you guys for filming.